Hello, good evening. Welcome to the March 12th, 2024 school committee meeting. I'm going to call to order. This meeting is being held in person and or remotely as an alternate means of public access pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023 and all other applicable laws, temporarily amending certain provisions of the open meeting law. You are hereby advised that this meeting and all communications during this meeting may be recorded by the Town of Hingham in accordance with the open meeting law. If any participant wishes to record this meeting, please notify the chair at the start of the meeting in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20F, so that the chair may inform all other participants of said recording. We have Harbor Media recording this evening, as well as a recording for Zoom for purposes of the minutes. Also wanted to note that Carrie Nee, who is on the school committee, will be participating virtually, so we will be taking roll call votes for all of our votes this evening. Is anybody in the audience or online recording? If you could just throw your hand up. Okay, all right, so we will proceed. We have several sets of minutes to approve, so I will gladly take a motion.
Sure. All right. I will move to approve the minutes of the school committee meeting with the Select Board and Advisory Committee held on February 7th, 2024.
I will second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, Matt?
Aye.
Allie? Aye. Tim?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Carrie? Saw her say aye.
Didn't hear you, but we saw you.
I saw her. Can you give a thumbs up? Okay, thank you. And I'm an aye as well. Thank you. Okay. Next one.
Minutes. I'll move to approve the minutes of the school committee meeting held with Advisory Committee on February 15th, 2024.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, Matt?
Aye.
Allie? Aye. Tim?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Carrie? And I'm an aye as well. Okay.
Move to approve the minutes of the school committee meeting held February 26th, 2024.
I'll second.
Any discussion? No, for Carrie. All those in favor, Matt?
Aye.
Allie? Tim?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Carrie? And I'm an aye as well. Okay.
And then finally, the minutes of the school committee meeting held with the Select Board Advisory Committee and Capital Outlay Committee on February 27th, 2024.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor, Matt?
I'll abstain. I wasn't there.
Okay. Allie? Aye. Tim?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Carrie? And I'm an aye as well. Okay, great. All right, so that is the minutes. Moving on to item number 3, this is the questions and comments portion of our meeting. We set aside 15 minutes to take questions and comments for items that are not on tonight's agenda. Our practice is to take questions and comments during any new business items that are on the agenda. If you would like to get up and make a comment or ask a question, if you can throw your hand up, and then I'll read this last statement. Oh, okay, we do have one. All right, so I'm going to read the statement. We're going to ask that everybody go to the microphone, and if you can speak into the microphone, just because it's hard to hear sometimes, identify yourself. The Hingham School Committee encourages community engagement and welcomes questions and comments as agenda items are discussed at the meeting. In addition, we have set aside up to 15 minutes at the beginning of this meeting for comments or questions that fall under the purview of the school committee and are not already on tonight's agenda. If any guest wishes to speak, please raise your hand, state your name and address your comments to the chairperson. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per speaker and must relate to topics within the scope of the responsibility of the school committee. As established by Massachusetts general laws, the responsibilities of the school committee are to 1, select and to evaluate the superintendent, 2, review and approve budgets for public education in the district, and 3, establish educational goals and policies for the schools in the district. Speakers are encouraged to present their remarks in a respectful manner and to consider the privacy interest of others. The public comment period is not a time for debate or response to comments by the school committee. The school committee is not adopting or endorsing any of the comments made during the public comment period. In addition to this public comment period, the school committee practices to provide time for questions and comments from the public on new business items. All right, so we have Liza O'Reilly.
Hi, yeah, Liza O'Reilly, 19 Porter's Cove Road. I listened to the recording of the February 26th meeting, and there was one portion of it that really struck me. The HEA president stood up and talked about the comments of the negotiations, saying that, the HEA proposals were the greatest hits, making our students' lives better in the classroom. She couldn't remember a single one from the school committee that would have directly impacted students the way theirs did. Credit to the union. Wow, what a statement. Considering that the preamble of the contract states that the entire contract is made with the goal of providing quality education for the students enrolled in the Hingham Public Schools. Everything agreed to in the contract is in the best interest of the students. So I'm not privy to the school committee proposals for the successor contract you're currently negotiating. But I do want to point out that in the current contract, Article 45.1, that was a school committee proposal in the last negotiations with the sole intent, with the best interest of our students in mind. The article states on study committees, a joint committee shall be established for the purpose of studying and discussing the student educational impact, empirical underpinnings, structure, and practicality of a flex box schedule at the secondary level. Goes on to describe what the committee would be made up of, including half members from the school district, half from the association. The committee would convene no later than September 30th, 2020, and the first meeting would take place a month later. The school committee and the HEA agree to implement mutually agreed upon changes to the schedules by or before the start of the school year of the 2022-2023 school year. During the negotiations, the intent was for the Hingham Middle School and the high school to implement a flex block schedule. Flex block schedules provide space for targeted interventions that are otherwise challenging to fit into the school day, as well as opportunities for students to access more enrichment and extracurricular offerings. These schedules have numerous configurations and can be found in many Massachusetts schools and others across the country. It is my understanding that the HEA has blocked implementing this and refused to find the mutually agreed upon changes that would benefit Hingham students. Why would the HEA block an opportunity for Hingham students that has proven to be beneficial to students across the state and the country? Is the HEA only interested in implementing contract terms that they propose? The school committee has increased their COLA offerings, but when will the HEA move on their proposals? Bargaining in good faith comes with the intent to succeed in negotiations, where both sides need to put forth proposals that others will view as legitimate and fair. If the HEA wants to make students' lives better in the classroom, the time has come for movement in these negotiations. The school committee should hold firm on its proposals until the HEA is willing to fulfill the intent of the current contract. Also, I sincerely hope that when an agreement is reached, the intentions of the HEA, the school administration, and the school committee are for harmonious relations where you both treat each other with dignity and respect, as is stated in the contract. Both sides.
We're at 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I see a hand up. Ben Lockheim, if you can state your name and address. And unmute. I believe you have to unmute.
Looks like you're unmuted, but we can't hear you. Give it a second.
Aisha, I'm not sure if that blue light means something. Okay, she's our owl whisperer. Oh, great. Now we got you. Okay, great.
Sorry about that.
All right, so Ben, if you can state your name and address, that would be great.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Wonderful. Thank
I
you.
want to make sure that, sorry, I can't turn on my video right now.
That's fine.
My name is Ben Lockheim, 15 Garner Street. I have a daughter at South School. She's in first grade. I have some questions, but first I'd just like to make quite clear that Liza O'Reilly, and I appreciate her statement, She has not been at any negotiations. Jacqueline Beaupre, the president of the HEA, has been at all of them. I shouldn't say all, she may be at 99%, but she's been at the negotiations. I've been at several of the negotiations as a silent negotiator. I can unequivocally say that any policies that we have tentative agreements on have been the union presenting those policies. And it seems, if we're going to bring up the kind of ins and outs of negotiations that Liza O'Reilly, a former school committee member, has, it's been the school committee dragging their feet on, I can talk about parental leave and how the school committee has used to give what teachers deserve, the dignity to be home with their children. They fought and fought and fought against it until finally they were able to give a little bit of leverage towards that after several negotiations that dragged their feet on that. That's just one example I can think of off the top of my head. I just want to make quite clear that it should be noted from someone, and I hope the public would listen to the HEA about someone who was actually there at negotiations. And denigrating Jacqueline Beaupre has been unbelievable president representing us and representing the teachers and fighting for the rights of the students to make sure that they have better needs in the classroom, things along those lines. So, and the last thing that I want to say is a bunch of thoughts. The idea that we should be respectful in our language, I would urge Liza O'Reilly to not post things on social media and online that would be, that would be denigrating towards other people. I don't know if people are following that, but I would urge Liza O'Reilly to practice what she preaches as well. That is, I don't really have a question. I'm not sure. I haven't, can people hear me? I just want to make sure that everyone can hear that.
Yep, you have 50 seconds left if you want to use it.
Yeah, I just, again, not to repeat myself, but to be crystal clear, I would trust someone who was at the negotiations, not someone who has never been to one negotiation during this entire process. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Oh, Jacqueline, sorry, thank you.
Hi, Jacqueline Beaupre, Hingham Education Association president. I guess I'll address comments made earlier first. I'll give it to you. You did propose a flex block. Unfortunately, the proposal so far is simply how often it will meet. Nothing about what it will accomplish, when during the day it's going to be, who is going to run it, how students will know where to go, if it will include more work time for teachers. There's nothing in the proposal except for how often it will meet, going from like monthly to once a week. And that is not something that we can tell will benefit students. It's just unacceptable at this point. So that's why we haven't agreed to it, because we don't know what it is. All right, so I'm up here to thank you for finally sending us the budget for this year with the actual spending to date. We've been requesting that for over a month now, and multiple times, and we finally had to threaten an unfair labor practice to get it, and I hope that doesn't happen in the future. It's really been problematic to meet in negotiations without really having a good sense of what the spending is so far. So thank you for sending that along.
Thank you. Anyone else? No, okay. Okay, so we are going to move on to item number 4. It's the superintendent's report. Dr. Adams?
In my superintendent's report, we just want to honor and celebrate our students from both the middle school and the high school. We had 12 middle school students and 3 high school students who participated this past weekend in the Massachusetts Music Educators Association Southeast Junior District Music Festival. And we want to honor all their efforts and work and celebrate them as they represented Hingham in the festival. We also want to invite the community tomorrow at the high school gym, March 13th at 7 o'clock, is the all-town band concert. The theme this year is the 80s, and you can imagine the costumes that students will be wearing. I hear the big finale is Don't Stop Believing, played by nearly 400 students all at once. It is I was present last year, and it's an honor to see students come together as a community at the elementary, middle, and high school, come together and play together and work together, and phenomenal experience, and invite the whole community to come. We are excited to welcome Tara Boning as the new South School principal. She will begin working with Miss Eastwood to begin planning a transition, and we are grateful for Miss Eastwood's time and efforts in supporting that transition. We also congratulate Lori Jacobs, who we have also heard is taking on a new leadership opportunity. Miss Boning and Miss Eastwood will work closely in the hiring of a new assistant principal at South. Hingham Middle School Drama is gearing up this weekend for their production of Mary Poppins Jr. On Thursday and Friday of this week. We wish the students well in their upcoming performance as well. I hear there is some moving Mary Poppins in the air, so it's going to be a great production. And we thank all the staff involved as well. We want to congratulate the Hingham High School juniors who participated in the History Day contest. We had projects featuring the Rosies of Hingham Shipyard, Welding Women's Way Forward, Nellie Bly, and as well as Turning Points in History. We had 33 students who were selected to advance to the Regional History Day, and 17 are selected to compete in the state competition. Kids in Action enrollment for next year is underway. You remember we came and updated the rates for the following year, for next year. We wanted to begin the process early to give families a sense that they have after-school care if needed, before-school care. It will also help us do more planning, staff-wise, as well as make sure that we have any needs that particular students might need addressed in the after-school program as well. Just a reminder that on April 22nd, the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed will be on site for the full week for the Comprehensive District Program Review. This is a state process governed by the state, and districts go through this process every 6 years. They'll be visiting classrooms. They'll be doing interviews of staff at all levels. Families will be invited to an evening to also give feedback. School committee members will also have a session with them. We're in the process of collecting documents to share with them, which include curriculum units, agendas of meetings, and a variety of different district plans. You heard about the new IEP from Dr. Cataldo at the last meeting. This February early release. Special education staff met for the first time to look at the documents and learn more. There's a session planned in May again, as well as some additional opportunities planned for next spring. We'll also plan in the fall to share some information with families as well about the new IEP. The school building committee had a very busy meeting. It got a lengthy update on the progress of the new elementary school building project, which include significant progress on the building with the classrooms. We have the interior framing is nearly complete, the roofing is complete, and we're excited to see the progress of the building. And Area B as well continues to make progress. We've been working on furniture and equipment orders. Purchase orders are being put into place. The school building committee approved the library shelves, storage cabinets, and cafeteria tables to be ordered now because they're made of metal. The lead time is a little longer. Joe Andrews, Director of Technology, is working also on the technology needed for the new school as well, so those can be ordered, so that we'll be ready as well by the opening of the school. And I think that's all I have.
That's a lot. Thank you so much. There's so much great stuff going on in the district.
Yes.
The history students in particular, they're so much smarter than I ever was in high school. So that's really nice to hear, and really excited about the new principal over at South, and then in the arts community. Typically, when they have this concert, we are in the middle of budget cycle, but I was told that ACES was supposed to vote tomorrow on their budget, but they're not going to since the select board hasn't voted. So I am excited that I will be able to join for the band.
Us too.
Yeah, yeah. And then Mary Poppins this weekend, so it's a fun-filled week. So thank you. All right, so communication. Yeah, yeah.
Last week, they also had the orchestra concert at the middle school.
That's true.
Phenomenal job by all grades 7 through 12. The high school students were great mentors. 2 high schools stood up and spoke to the younger kids, and it was a great concert.
Thank you for adding that. That's important.
All right, item 5, communications received by the superintendent. Anything? No. Okay, student communications. We've got Slater Fairfield and Alex Doggett here today. Welcome.
This past week, members of our Model UN Club attended a conference hosted at BC High and returned home with several awards. And 17 HHS juniors were recognized at the Regional History Day contest hosted by Foxborough High School this Sunday, the Sunday before this past one. And by winning medals in their categories, they earned the opportunity to advance to the state level Massachusetts History Day in April. We also completed several grade level assemblies designed to help students in grades 9 through 11 complete course selection, and students were encouraged to review the new program studies that was published the week before break. All students are now in the middle of selecting courses, which is, the portal is open between March 9th and March 17th, so there's still 5 more days.
Students were excited to attend the All-Town Orchestra at HMS 3 days ago. That was very exciting. The career exploration event was held today in the auditorium, I believe. And I know many of my peers who went to that and got to interact with some of our town businesses and future career opportunities, and to see what that experience is like. And students looking for local community service opportunities can now use the website we previously discussed here, which was sent out with the announcements on Friday.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on to item 6. And before I pass it over to Dr. Adams and Aisha, if you can just bear with me for a couple minutes. I think it's important to say this because I know you're going to be talking about the budget going forward, but I think the history is important too. And I will sound like a broken record to some who have been participating and listening, but to those who haven't been around for all of our meetings, I think the information is important. The override last year was years in the making. When I joined in 2019, the town committees had been talking about how to handle the growth rate of expenses exceeding town revenues for quite a while. Our school district had staffing issues going back to the opening of East. East was opened during the Great Recession. In order to fully staff the new elementary school, the district needed a little over $2 million in an override. The town voted in 2009 to approve an override of $1.1 million. The advisory committee at that time recommended that $960,000 of federal stimulus funds be used to close the budget gap. The federal stimulus money went away, leaving Hingham with a funding gap. Hingham Public Schools gradually replenished staff, implemented state mandates, updated curriculum standards, and maintained properties and buildings slowly. HPS was still running lean as a district when COVID hit. It is in large part why we could not get the students spaced out with the number of staff we had. The town recognized the importance of getting the appropriate staffing levels in order to deal with the issues relating to COVID, including learning loss. We used one-time money from the government to fund the addition of 32 positions that first year. Those positions allowed us to fully implement the multi-tiered system of support. It's the model that we had been discussing for years, including additional support staff like our interventionist. We were fortunate to have one-time rainy day funds, or unassigned fund balance, to continue to fund our needs the following year while we work to socialize the need for an override. I recognize that this is really hard for the staff, students, parents, administrators, and school committee members. I always like to ask people to remember that we have nothing but good intentions when doing the work that we do. Personally, I did not run for school committee to make life miserable for teachers and staff. I have the utmost respect for what they do. I can also say with 100% certainty that this committee truly values public education. I don't think that's necessarily the case in other districts across the U.S. I consider myself extremely fortunate to work with such committed volunteers. I think the way that public education is funded is flawed. I find it to be inequitable and difficult to manage, particularly in Massachusetts, where we have to contend with Proposition 2.5, or Prop 2.5. Unlike corporations that can simply increase prices for their goods and services, our increases come on the backs of taxpayers. I believe it is worthwhile investment, but don't take for granted how challenging tax increases are for some. Last spring, we were able to pass a nearly $8 million operational override. It was the 5th largest override to pass in Massachusetts history, 7th largest of all those attempted. At this point last year, we were discussing the possibility of cutting 60 positions to get to a balanced budget if the override wasn't passed. I was extremely proud we were able to get that passed in order to support the needs of our town. It was the first operational override to pass in Hingham since the opening of East. As Dr. Adams and Aisha will present shortly, along with that override was the commitment to keep our growth rate to 3.5% over the next 4 years. The taxpayers are being asked to pay, on average, an additional 11% in taxes due to the passage of the building of the new elementary school and public safety facility, as well as that override. The 3.5% was not something that was pulled out of the air. It was part of the work done by the Sustainable Budget Task Force. A few weeks back, at a joint meeting between the school committee, select board, and AdCom, I shared some of the challenges that Dr. Adams and Aisha Opong have walked into, given the state of the economy. I think the two of them, along with Katie Roberts, Dr. Cataldo, and the team of people working in the district, have been thoughtful and show a commitment to getting to the right answer for the students. At that meeting, I also shared that we recognize the rising cost of health insurance that have added to the financial pressure of our employees, not only in Hingham Public Schools, but as a town. By direction of Liz Klein and the select board members, the town administrator will be setting up a task force to look at the cost of benefits here in town. This task force will be similar to the Sustainable Budget Task Force. That task force will present the results to the select board and come up with a recommendation. It will take time to study, but I'm happy to report that the health benefits will be reviewed for the first time since I believe the 90s. I personally want to thank the entire team for all their efforts during this budget cycle. I know it wasn't easy. The principals, Mary Eastwood, Jonathan Hawes, Greg Lamoth, Matt Shifley, Derek Smith, and Rick Swanson. The interim executive director of student services, Dr. Robert Cataldo. The director of athletics, Jim Quattromoni. Transportation supervisor, Patrick Cunningham. Custodial maintenance and special projects manager, Katie St. Clair. And Manager of Technology Services, Joe Andrews. A special thank you to Katie Roberts, Dr. Adams, and Aisha Opong for the countless hours that you have put in. We see you. As I stated, I believe in the public schools. Some may know that my oldest attends a private school. That decision to allow her to attend was the result of countless hours of discussion and debate. After all, we moved to Hingham for the schools. I had to let her follow her passion, so made the difficult decision to take her out of Hingham. The issues that we are facing in Hingham and public schools as a whole is not new to private schools either. Private schools face similar challenges, sometimes even more so. My daughter's math teacher resigned after just 2 weeks into the school year this year, and she still does not have a math teacher. We have such an amazing staff. I want to thank all the teachers, paras, interventionists, and staff for all you do for our students and children. I got to speak to a few teachers this week as I'm going through the override process, as Alex had mentioned. A few of the teachers at the middle school had my daughters and remembered their names and wished them well, and I am so grateful that we have the amazing staff that we do. So I will now pass it over to Dr. Adams and Aisha.
So to get us started, we're going to just provide a brief overview of some of the changes and update to the FY25 budget for your consideration. We'll present an update the impact of continuing collective bargaining agreements and the impact on the budget. We'll talk about the reductions needed to close the deficit that exists in the FY25 budget and some important dates coming up.
In terms of the financial 25 budget, the one update that we have is within the teaching line, where this, you'll see later in the slides, part of our changes in negotiations has resulted in increased costs in that line, and we wanted to reflect it as part of the revised budget. This also meant that the deficit that we had discussed earlier has also increased from by 300 plus thousand to 995,000. One of the things I also wanted to remind everyone about is that as part of, starting from this year actually, what we've been doing is that we've been, as negotiations has moved forward, we've had to make reductions in textbooks and curriculum and also technology. Based on some of in the current year's budget, we've had to revise those estimates. And as part of the 25 budget, we've made further reductions, which I spell out as part of the slides here. So the technology and the curriculum reductions are already baked into this because they've actually started with this fiscal year. Katie Roberts. Katie Roberts, doctor in training, right? Yeah. Will definitely assure us that that we've had to have these discussions with directors and coordinators just to make sure that we've been making those reductions and being more thoughtful in terms of our spending as well. I don't know if you have any questions here, or should I just keep on going?
Is that a good question?
Yep.
I'm still struggling with the teaching line. Can we go from 23 to 24? That still did include a COLA increase because from the previous contract, I believe it was 2%. And then from 24 to 25 is, the current offer would be 3%. And and I know you moved some categories around.
Yep.
But it still seems higher from when, and we did budget, correct me if I'm wrong, we did budget for the COLA.
So the COLA
from last year.
The COLA we budgeted for last year was 2%.
2%.
Right? And because you're seeing the actual line, the actual line here, what you'll also notice that if you look at the special ed instructional line as well, you'll see a big jump in the actual expenditure of 9 million to 11 million there. A lot of, in terms of the actuals, that's where we have had wrong classifications in terms of special to regular ed as well.
Okay.
So that is also part of the difference that you're seeing here.
Okay.
Because we definitely don't have like a $2 million differential between actual and 23-24 for special ed, right? So part of that is based on those incorrect allocations of those positions.
From the previous year.
Yes, please.
Because the budget was less than.
So it's not, so
In one place, you'll see that if you look at instructional technology, you'll see a decrease.
Yep.
And remember, that's because the digital literacy teachers, for example, one example, at the elementary were being put into that instructional technology line, and now they're being moved into where they should be, which is teachers. And so that accounts for at least 4 positions, right? So that's one place
That is higher.
that's there's been an adjustment.
and if you still have queries about it, we can dig into it again and we can meet and just go through it if you'd like, if you have
Okay.
questions on that as well.
I think I'm gonna want to do
Okay.
that.
Anything else?
Not at this time.
All right. So this slide you've actually seen, and there's been no change to this slide. It's just kind of showing revolving funds. All of the revolving funds that we currently manage and how those funds will be utilized in terms of the financial 25 budget. one of the questions that has come up in the past is, yes, we seem to be using large amounts of those revolving accounts as part of our current budget for 25, and will we be able to sustain those increases in expenditure given the fact that we are basically zeroing out some of those accounts? The specific ones that we're looking at were with regards to, for example, in the case of the athletic fee, where we've increased that fee this year, and we're asking the committee as part of your approval of this budget to also consider increasing the athletic fee as well, so that we can keep up with the costs of coaching, the cost of the staffing for that line, as well as the cost of providing athletics to our students. This is an area that we have not had significant reductions in over the last few years because we've been able to use that revolving account to keep it going. So we just ask that you help us keep the revenue coming in and keep it in line with the costs that are incurred as part of that line item as well. Another area that we've also discussed earlier was the pre-K, preschool tuitions. This year we've tried to increase those tuition, those offerings to students. With the new Foster building coming up, we're adding more pre-K opportunities for Hingham residents, and the Hingham residents have applied and shown that this is a service that they actually want to be able to utilize. So I think that by that increase in that service over the last couple of years, with the Spanish immersion, and now with both the increase in KIA and the increases in the integrated pre-K, we'll be able to maintain that preschool line as well. And then with full day kindergarten, one of the things that we ask of you as part of this budget as well is to keep the full day kindergarten fee constant. I know that it was a priority of the committee to try to reduce that fee as much as possible. I want to reiterate that we have a sliding scale in place. So families who may have any issues in terms of inability to pay or income, or the inability to pay because of their income levels, we're taking that into consideration in terms of any families that come to us. And we're also asking that fee just remain at the level that it is, at least for the next few budget cycles, until maybe the next override again. Okay. And that's it. Any questions on this one?
Can I just react to that comment?
Sure.
Because I mean, we'll vote on tonight will be just this budget. I would say, I was going to say it during that, because you just said the next few cycles. That was the first
Right.
I heard that. Maybe I missed it before.
Well, you just have to vote for today.
Correct, yes. I guess I would say publicly that
Right.
I would say the feedback, the biggest feedback I get in terms of concern, there's actually a fair amount on fees, but the full day kindergarten is the largest. So while I personally am, and I said it before, I'm uncomfortable, but we'll vote for it this year based on where we are. I'm not sure. I know we're not committing today for the future to do that, but my hope, strong hope, would be that next year we can get back to where we were planning on going to, which is reducing.
Thank
To
you.
take it year by year.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Okay. One step at a time, right? I shouldn't have jumped the horse on that one. In terms of this graph here, or this chart here, you've also seen this chart here before. The major change in this one here is really in terms of updating it for the regular education spending budget, also changing it for the deficit amount as well. But you'll see that the net school spending of that 3.5% remains the same. There's been no change in terms of the use of our grants and the revolving that we discussed before. Okay. All right, thank you. The fees, as part of voting for this budget, it would mean also voting for the fee increases that we've discussed over presenting the budget to you. Some of those fee increases are in terms of athletic fees, jumping from $375 to $425 and $950 to $1,100. in terms of the family cap. Kindergarten, as I mentioned before, remaining constant. The facilities fees, looking at a 5% increase in those, as well as Kids in Action and pre-K. One thing that we're asking for this year is also to have put in place a high school activities fees, which is very new for this year. But hopefully, as part of voting for this budget, that fee will also be voted on as well. Okay, thank you. As part of the budget that I presented ahead of this, you would have seen a $1.4 million amount. That is part in terms of the MOU that we signed with the town last year. And as part of signing that MOU, the town agreed and has so far appears to be honoring that agreement of actually bearing the cost of any increases in out-of-district tuition and specialized services for special ed above 2%. And that's what that 1.4 million deduction includes. Okay. And this slide just kind of shows the breakdown of that cost and related to transportation and the net amount that the town will be providing us with. Okay.
Have we received any feedback on that?
What's
from
that?
the town?
How much?
Not covering that. Have we heard anything? Have they had any discussions? No.
No, I mean, we've met with the town administrators for finance and the town administrator, and as part of our discussions, as part of our presentation with ADCOM and the select board, we haven't had any questions come up in terms of honoring that agreement.
I think they were I agree with that. I mean, they were kind of like surprised at how high it was.
Yep.
And were
Yeah,
concerned going forward.
Right.
Is it going to remain that way? But it would totally agree. It wasn't pushback on honoring it for this
Exactly.
year.
Yep.
Is our vote tonight contingent upon that being covered for our agreement?
I would say yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And when are they taking their votes?
I believe next week.
19th,
so,
March
yeah.
19th.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think ACES would then vote on the 21st.
Okay. All right. In terms of our collective bargain agreements, we've had other changes with the other agreements, but in terms of financial impact, I only included this one here just because this is the only one that so far has had a major change in the financial agreement that impacts the budget for financial 25. I'm also looking at, because we recently had negotiations with Unit D, and I'm also looking at updating our budget presentation for those negotiations, but the one that I have most updated is the Unit A in terms of those which was last week, right? And for this one here, we have an additional cost of $316 that we've spoken about before. We're still out by about 2.7 million between our proposition versus the HEA's proposition, and just kind of showing what that means in terms of the cost of this versus the cost of where we are versus where the unit is itself. Okay.
Aisha, I have another
Sure.
question. I have lots of questions. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Can you remind me, does that cost include the longevity payments?
So that cost does not.
Does not,
The
okay.
longevity will be an extra 400,000.
Okay.
For this year.
Do you have the I know, just ballpark what all in the number is across
Right.
all of the different for next year?
Yep. So that one is the last time I presented it was about 4 to 5 million, but I think we've made some additional offers since then that I would need to bake into that as well. So for example, we offered substitute. We never budgeted, for example, for a substitutes for Unit D before, but we've agreed to that now. So that's something I would have to look at the cost of that and include that as well, right? Because we have vacation and personal days as part of the unit that we never had like large scale substitutes for that. So that would be something I'll have to budget for as well and include as part of that. So I don't want to misspeak in terms of that area because we've made some updates to that as well.
I think that what Aisha is also referring to is as the contract negotiations continue and there are changes to the contract that have financial implications, they'll have implications potentially to the FY25 budget. So we're presenting what we know now, you're voting upon the proposals that have been made thus far, but there could be other financial impacts as we progress through contract negotiations.
So how will we handle that?
So, I mean, it'll
As
just
with
be
voting.
reductions, it'll just be approval of any additional reductions.
I mean, the budget is what the budget is, the 3.5%, and then the identified amounts for special ed over 2% is a known as well, and we can then vote on capital outlay because we know what they've given to us. So I think those three numbers we can vote on. I think going forward, it will, as negotiations continue to go forward, it may require us to make additional cuts. Yeah.
That's what it is, yeah,
And when that happens, that'll come back to the committee.
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So just, yes, thank you. So in terms of kind of looking at, we also included some of those slides in terms of, so we know that, we know where the budget is, we know what we've agreed, the committee has agreed to in terms of, and the impact of that, of those agreements so far. And in terms of trying to decide how do we close that hole between what we've agreed to versus the funds that we have available, some of the things that we looked at in terms of with the principals and the leadership team to try to figure out how we close that loop was to look at our staff ratios and our staff ratios within the elementary. And share your other slide. We also looked at student to staff ratios in the middle and high school as well, and looking at what areas could we reduce that will have the least impact to our students, right? One other area that we looked at as well, we looked at in terms of when you look at FTEs per 100 students comparable to, and against our comparable districts. We looked at teachers, paraprofessionals, leadership, student support, clerical, and tech. And we could tell that in terms of the two areas that we could see from that chart were tech, in terms of tech personnel, leadership personnel, where we are probably second to last on the compared to our comparable districts. In the other areas, for example, we're still on par with most of these other comparable districts. I don't know if you want to add anything to that in terms of that slide.
No, I think we've received some questions, the committee's received some questions about why have we not considered central office positions as part of reductions. Last year, we made a reduction in a receptionist to the central office. We also reclassified a position that was classified as human resource director as a coordinator and reduced the salary as such. So we reduced some of the responsibilities and reduced the qualifications as well. Central office staff, many are not part of contractual units or unions. And so they have their own contracts. Most of those are 3-year contracts that have stipulations that if their position is eliminated, we would have to pay their salaries through the remainder of their contracts. So there aren't any positions that we could move forward in eliminating that would have a cost savings. In addition, special education administrators and positions, as you've seen, the numbers have increased in special education. And we love Dr. Cataldo and having her. We have an interim director of student services. Just in our opinion, we didn't feel that reducing administrators at this time in special education would meet the needs of where the special education programming, the numbers of students that we have made sense.
Thank you. That's helpful, because I know I did have a couple of people ask questions about that, and in the context of this, it wasn't as apparent that we obviously were looking at kind of every stone and every position, and it's a good reminder we did make those reductions last year at central office.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
I think maybe there is, not in this meeting, but at some point, I think there's some confusion, or at least I hear, of what the role of the special ed directors is at the building level. So I don't know if we can do some, like, maybe a communication about that, just so people are more understanding of what that role is. Because I would agree that while it's an added, well, they were added leadership positions, I mean, given the increase of the population of students who are requiring special education services, I think those two roles are really important. And the fact that we are fortunately having an interim director here, but we'll be transitioning in the leadership in that. So
3 hours of sleep at night right now, so we want them.
Okay. So just to proceed in terms of what those other reductions will be, I think for some of those, we've already presented those to you, so they're not being seen for the first time. So I'll just kind of run through them, or Dr. Adams, you want to do that?
Yep, so these are not new. What is new is the .2 art teacher. There's an art teacher that moves between the middle school and the high school. .2 of their time is at the middle school, and the other .8 is at the high school. So you'll see that reflected at the high school. I know we've received some questions around the impact on the library. We heard Mr. Smith a couple of weeks ago, it seems like a long time ago, but that he believes that with a half-time librarian, he can still provide access to the library. We would still provide access after school to the library using staffing through activities, or having someone present so that kids could access after school. Any electives that person is teaching might be reduced, and there are plenty of other electives and places students can elect to go and have their schedule full. As you've seen, we've shown multiple times, we've had some decreased enrollment both at the middle and high school, and you'll see that the reductions are mostly impacting those grade spans. Matt, you had a question? You look like it. Okay. At the high school, what is new here, you've previously seen the 2 retirements, the .6 music teacher, a world language teacher, additional history teacher will be new here, and then the .8 art teacher, which is split between the middle school. So that would be new. And those are needed in order to respond to the additional $300,000 in additional funding we need in order to account for the COLA's increase for Unit A.
Can you sorry. Guys.
Go ahead, yeah.
Or, go ahead. Dan.
I'll go first. Can you just talk a little bit about how it will impact the class sizes? I know enrollment is down at the high school. That impact with the additional history teacher, and also for the world language, will students lose an opportunity to take a certain language? Will that be impacted, or all the languages are still being offered, I believe?
All the languages still being offered.
Just will it impact the scheduling for the students, whether getting their first choice or second choice, or?
It depends on the choices students make, of course. As we've shared in the past, some of these classes are smaller, so it will mean an increase in the class size. Of course, it might mean that there might be tighter schedules, that students might have to choose, make a choice between some of the electives they're choosing and courses they're choosing in order to fit into their schedule. But we believe we can offer the range of courses we've been offering, but they might be less opportunity, right? It might be only in a certain couple of blocks, and students might have to make some choices in where they might be offered. If it's a semester-based course, it might be offered in one semester and not another. So they will have to make some choices as we sort of respond to the course selections that students are making, but also in response to that our enrollment is decreasing. And we are continuing to lose students between some pressure points, between 8th and 9th, and 6th and 7th.
Matt?
Yeah, I had a similar question, but let me just make sure I'm understanding to the best of my ability. So let's say history right now, and I'm not looking for like exact numbers, but just walk me through like kind of what we would think. So history, for instance, in the high school, we have 16.9 kids in a class, 79 sections. Two history teachers are no longer there. we're still offering 79 sections.
No,
we're
we'd-
limiting
we'd off-
sections.
we'd
So we're
offer
limiting
less
like
sections.
6, 7, or 69 sections or something like that, like 5.
Right, so there might be less sections of a U.S. history course,
Yeah.
and more students funneled into particular sections of a course.
And-
Or less world history courses, and more students funneled. So we raised that class size perhaps for the average, remember, those are averages.
Yeah, I know.
So some courses may be smaller, and some may be larger than that. We may be funneling more students into particular courses, so that we are raising the class size. But as we share, those class sizes are relatively smaller as we've lost enrollment at the high school.
Do we have any sense of like, I can't do that math in my head, is it like probably like a couple kids per class?
I can't
Ish?
tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it wouldn't be though, I wouldn't think.
We're not going to 30.
From 16.9 to 23.
No.
Or ELA with 18.9, it's one teacher, but it's not, it's probably on the order of 1 or 2. I know it totally depends, but it's probably more on the order of that versus 4 or 5.
It could be. I mean, it could
it
be
could
the
be
class
anything.
gets closer to 20, 24.
Yep.
Depending on the class and depending on the courses that students are selecting.
Okay.
We still have a policy on class sizes,
Mm-hmm.
so we would maintain the class sizes on.
Yep. And
That's
try to
helps.
balance the classes off and make sure, based upon student schedule, try to balance classes and class sizes.
But with fewer classes being offered, scheduling might become more difficult, which would then make some students make different choices with their schedule. So,
Yep.
yeah, it would affect scheduling.
Does it impact any of the AP history classes?
It shouldn't, no.
Does it impact any of the elective history offerings? Like, will we have to eliminate any, or?
I don't, again, you're funneling students from the range of choices that they are, and so you're funneling them, and it also depends on course selection. So if there are a large number of students who are choosing an elective, and there's enough to balance, create 2 or 3 sections, we will. And we'll be responsive to the selections students make.
So for example, if there was the addition of the World War II elective, I think a history World War II elective. If there's enough students who want that particular section, that would run.
Yeah. There are a range of courses, you'll see there's a range of courses in the program of studies. Some years they run because there's student interest, and some years they might not, depending on the selection of students. And having enough students to make the course viable to move forward. So it's a balancing act.
I'm smiling because I've asked my kids to take accounting, and it seems to never be offered because
there are not enough students.
Yeah, not enough students. I don't know why, but
There is a need nationwide for accountants, so we should encourage more students to take finance and accounting.
thank you. Your lips to my kids' ears.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all probably grasping a little bit just with 2 positions in one discipline or department, which, not that you're wanting to even it out, but I think that's just what we're all sort of grappling with.
Yep.
I'm kind of fond of history myself.
Yes.
I'll just add
Same.
if I could that there were some reductions made, for example, to science last year based on retirement. So other departments were impacted last year
Okay.
through retirements, and so that's part of the reason it's not even between departments. And it was enrollment. Looking at the average class sizes is how the decisions were made. So.
And if you
That's
look
helpful.
at
Thank you.
If you look at the number of sections, just in comparison, there are 60 sections of science and 79 of history. So it's a place where we've just had more staffing and probably responsive to the enrollment that was present at that time. But since the decline of enrollment, there haven't been, as Katie mentioned, the reductions in that particular department that there have been in some others.
And then this summarizes some of the changes that we've made so far. One other change that we haven't discussed, which is an addition for this time as well, is the Plymouth River School, elementary school, where we have one reduction of a classroom teacher and a bit of a change in terms of curriculum as well.
This is in response to decreased enrollment, so it would be
that a grade moving forward, we need less sections, still would have reasonable class sizes, but we don't need that additional teacher given the enrollment at the school. So it's one elementary teacher based upon the enrollment that we have.
I have a question about technology, but
Go ahead.
was that looked at across all the buildings, and does that include, I'm specifically thinking about the Chromebooks at the middle school. I mean, that's something that's not student facing. Is that another area that you considered?
So this, in terms of technology, we're looking at mostly the apps.
Software.
We're looking at software, the apps and software. It's something that's more of a global change. It's not by school, specifically school by school. There's some recommendations coming out of the technology committee that we've honored in terms of whether these should be kept going forward. And some of them that because of reductions here, we may need to cut, because I think in a lot of places we probably would prioritize technology over person. Technology.
Person over
Reducing
technology.
technology over person.
One of the things that happened is that during COVID, and many places did, we put in a lot of new technology software in response because we needed to quickly pivot and to educate students. But a lot of that software we continued those subscriptions. So the technology committee under Katie has been looking at actual usage of all of those. And started to think about which ones might we eliminate and be able to reduce, because we just don't have users. And we probably certainly had lots of users during COVID, but now we're prioritizing different, the work we're doing with students every day, and try to minimize the number of applications that we have. I don't know if you want to add anything.
No, just to be, prioritize staff over the technology. So we certainly, some of the apps we would like to keep if we could, but want to prioritize keeping staff over technology and curriculum at this time.
Can you talk a little bit more about curriculum? Because I think you've mentioned before this would push back some of our textbook adoption plans.
So in terms of our professional development time next year, so a curriculum adoption is also a professional development commitment as well. And we do feel that next year we really need to turn our attention professional development wise to social emotional learning. And so we are going to slow a bit on some of the curriculum rollout. The next big curriculum initiative will be elementary math. We're hopeful in the same way that we access some DESE grant funding through the high quality curriculum material initiative that DESE has, that we may be able to access some DESE grant funding for any future math adoption. And so by delaying our pilot, we also increase our chances of being able to access some of those funds. Certainly, if we had more curriculum money, there are some areas, for example, literature circles at the secondary level is something that we look to continually refresh. But again, at this moment in time, we prioritize being fully staffed over pushing forward on some of those curriculum initiatives.
So is the current plan is to have the new math curriculum in like next year's budget with all the grant information, all of that? Is that the sort of the current timeline we're on?
Yeah, so our hope would be to pilot next year, and there's no cost implication other than professional development for a pilot. So we would still need to budget professional development workshop time for any teacher choosing to participate in the pilot, but there would be no material cost. The vendors provide that for free. So we would then be needing to budget for the following year. And we also, depending on the state of the budget, we could consider a slower rollout, perhaps begin with K2, and then the following year tackle grades 3 to 5. So I think we're waiting to see how the budget picture lands, and then we can improvise as needed for that curriculum rollout. The team has done a lot of great work, and the teachers have done a lot of great work around math instructional practices that we can work on even before we have an additional new curriculum. So the reading program obviously was a very high priority. We did desperately need those new curriculum materials, but we felt comfortable waiting on the math curriculum adoption.
Is the professional development for the pilot reflected in the budget we're voting on tonight?
Yeah, so the professional development budget is also a moving target. So we have, for example, offered increases to graduate course reimbursement that will impact the professional development picture. So that is part of the calculus that will need to be done. So once the budget settles, we'll be able to have a clearer picture of which projects we can prioritize next year, with the social emotional piece being the number one priority for next year based on the needs that we're seeing in students.
Yeah.
So that reminds me, I keep thinking back to last year when we went through the first round of the budget, and the school committee asked the administration for, do you have, I think it was Matt, or maybe it was Tim, asked what else do we want to add in this budget to put forward to our extras. And there was 4 things in our extras. One of them was the kindergarten professional development. I can't remember the other 2. Yes. And then it was,
I think
but I remember the total was around $1.5 million. And I just didn't, I know some of these things were revisited, but because those were our additions to last year, I would think that we would first look at those first when prioritizing what would be cut.
So the things that we added on as additional things for last year was a nurse coordinator,
Okay.
the middle school technology, Chromebooks,
School technology.
right? That moved from capital to operations.
Okay.
Nurse coordinator, Chromebooks, professional development, and the kindergarten. The kindergarten,
Yep.
unless we want to increase the prices again, the value of the kindergarten, that's something that we won't be able to rescind on or to change, right? In terms of the technology, we continue to have to provide Chromebooks for middle schoolers, as well as refreshers between the first, the elementary school refreshers as well. So these 2 areas. The third would be professional development, and I think that's what Katie just spoke to.
I would add one area of concern that I have is we historically, through Title II grants, have had an additional anywhere from $40,000 to $60,000 to apply to professional development. We've had some early signals from DESE that we likely will not be eligible for Title II funding next year, and so that is a $40,000 to $60,000 hit to the professional development budget. So that is makes it very challenging to accurately plan for professional development for next year.
Right, so we have that, and plus exactly in terms of our contractual obligations, both in terms of mentoring our staff and in terms of course reimbursements. Not only have we increased that benefit to our teachers, but we've also increased that benefit to other units as well.
Can I just add, can you hear me?
Yes. Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. With the nursing coordinator, some of the agreements would come to with you today rely on having a nursing coordinator, so that position would definitely be key.
Yeah, and I didn't want to call out a specific position. I was just trying to go back to the beginning.
Okay.
There's a couple more slides. Should we just
Is that it for the?
just the important dates?
Just the important dates, yeah. And then on there, I think there was the vote for AdCom. I spoke with the chair today, so it was either they were going to vote tomorrow, which they're not, which frees us up, or next week. I believe the select board is going to vote on Tuesday, so they would then vote on Wednesday or Thursday. So that's kind of in flux. And I guess from our perspective, we can vote on our budget tonight, assuming the 3.5% that we have agreed to on the MOU. If something happens on the select board or AdCom and ACE's votes, we would then have to revote to, well, we'd have to decide whether we want to revote or not, to reflect their numbers or to stay with our numbers. So
Have we been, I'm trying, did we vote last year before them or?
I believe so. Yes, actually, yes, because we said this is the one that we know we need to put forward the override budget. We weren't going to vote.
The two
Yeah,
numbers.
yep.
Okay. The other thing that I did is that I also added to the slides as well, not the slides, sorry, but to the folder as well in your packet, the capital that the capital outlay committee provided.
Okay.
So that we can vote on that as well too, please.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Okay, so from what I have on things that we would need to take a vote on, we've got the operational budget, 3.5%.
Yeah.
Do we have to vote on the 2%, the over 2% for special ed that goes to, that we need to get the covered cost from the town?
Yes, I would think so.
Okay, so that's the second one. And then capital outlay. Then you are proposing an increased fee for athletic fee, and the new high school activities club fee.
Right,
So those are the 5 things that need to be voted on tonight.
exactly.
No, we did not.
I think we were waiting until the final.
Yes, you will. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you will.
Aisha,
Yes.
can you just remind us on the capital budget, you have a list of what was included, what was not included? I think you said
Okay.
it was like 95% of the request for this
Yes. So, it's funny because I had that list going in the folder. So in terms of technology, that was all voted in and agreed to. What we didn't receive as part of our list of items were, for example, one of the things that we were trying to do was to update the lockers at Foster, at Plymouth River. One of the suggestions that Mrs. Hartman Sinclair had was to use the Foster ones and repurpose it for use at Plymouth River. And if it is that, if it was that we weren't able to do that because of, there's a possibility that when we get to Foster's lockers, that there may be asbestos and other issues by doing that, and it may be more costly in terms of refurbishing those lockers, but it would be a gradual install of replacing some of the PRS lockers, because the PRS lockers are very, very narrow, and they're not, I think they were probably built like many years ago. Most of the kids, their backpacks can barely fit in there. So that was just a gradual increase that we were looking at for that one. That one didn't get approved. If you give me a minute, I'll tell you all of them that weren't. I mean, in terms of, so for example, some of the tree cuttings that we got, we didn't get the full amount that we requested on the tree cuttings. And then some of the equipment that we requested, we didn't get all of the equipment either. We got, for example, a floor machine and a paint machine, but we were also asking for a lawnmower to be able to do the fields as well. We didn't get that one. But just to give you an idea that we do have some flexibility in terms of capital. The capital that we put forward and what we actually decide to do with it at the end, we have flexibility in terms of that as well. So as the year progresses, sometimes even if something may seem like a high priority today, we may have like a boiler breakdown on us, which happened last year as well. And we would have to prioritize that to keep the heat going in the building compared to other things. So there is flexibility even with those items here, and we have the ability to decide what we want to move forward based on the funding that we have. Okay, what I can do as well is that one of the things that the Capital Committee asked us to provide to them was a use of all the capital funding, because we got extra funding last year. They wanted to see to date how much we had spent so far and what was our plan for the future funds that we had available to us. And we provided them with a report that provided them with all of expenditure to date and our plans to use that capital funding. So maybe through the Finance and finance committee, we can provide you that same report and kind of give you an update of where we are to date on that as well. Okay?
I have a question on the special ed reserve bucket that we have.
Mhm.
Are we utilizing that for next year or this year? 'Cause
The special ed
the special
reserve
ed
fund? Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, did we have that, was that in the MOU that we had to utilize those funds before we asked for
No.
more
No.
than the 2%?
No.
Maybe it was in the original draft and we took it out?
In order to access those funds, you'd have to take a vote to access those funds.
Yeah, and I
And,
think what happens is, I know that we talk about free cash a lot, but the over 2% increase for special ed basically comes out of that, our free cash, the town's free cash. So there may be some excess over the 20% right now, but according to the advisory committee, they did a very full presentation on free cash and what the plan is and how to use that. And our ask for the over 2% special ed comes out of that fund. And they have a model that they had used during the override process last year that helps us get to the 5 years before asking the taxpayers for another override. And when they first budgeted their the special ed increase, it was half of what we're asking for now. So they're going to be using quite a bit for special ed.
Does that show up like anywhere on the sheet? Not that we're spending it, but like, should that be on, like, it's not a revolving fund? It's not,
It's not a revolving.
yeah.
It's for unanticipated and
No.
unbudgeted tuitions.
Is that the only sort of bucket of money that doesn't show up on any of these sheets? I'm not saying it as this is a bad thing, I'm just trying to keep track of everything.
Right, yeah, good question. I don't know if anything
think
else
it's
that was
more
voted on town meeting?
Yeah, 'cause it's really more like a mitigation.
Yeah.
fund
Mitigation
than
fund.
revolving.
It's not a revolving fund, so it wouldn't show up on that list.
Okay.
Sort of an account
Yeah, that's on the
that's
town side.
mitigation of
Okay.
increased special ed costs.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions?
Anyway, we have to do this tonight, around this time. One more time.
Yes, we are getting down to the wire on when the warrant needs to go to the printers. And we don't have an ability to meet next week to vote. We could do a meeting for Friday.
What's your concern, Jim? Like what, because there's a lot of votes that we're throwing out
Yeah,
there.
I have concerns with the total number of the budget, it's $10 million from last year. I have concerns over the least impact to students, what we were considering cutting last year versus this year. To me, they do not line up. I do recognize that enrollment is down at the high school. It still was, but it has been going down. That wasn't a reason last year, but it's a reason this year.
So you're saying like last year we looked at 50 positions
Mhm.
and these are kind of net new, which might be fine.
Well, some overlap.
Yeah, but majority, I think you're right.
Yeah, I think we got up to 60 positions last year that were at risk. Yeah, and it's not a first in, first out type of deal.
Yeah, and I'm thinking of the total personnel costs over the last 5 years. We used to be at 87% of our budget was personnel. Last year it was 83%. Now we're at 81.8%. So that number is going down, which means that the pot for everything else is going up, which I recognize. All the utility costs are going up. I recognize all of that.
Those are pretty small. I mean, even the utility costs are going up. I mean, it's 6% on whatever.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts?
I mean, I think it's, no.
I think there's a lot in there though, because we already know what the budget number is based on the 3.5% increase, so I think that in my mind is separate. That number is gonna be the number regardless, and then to Jen's concerns, there's other factors within there, but there are multiple votes.
So
Yeah,
can
I
we
think I
take
agree.
that, can we
Like,
take it
it
one
was
at a
68
time?
million and 624.
There's no
Like,
votes
I
to
guess
go.
I don't have any concerns at all with that vote. I'm not sure I have concerns with the other votes, but do you agree with that? Like that, I mean,
The 68 million.
yeah, I mean,
That
the
number's not
choice
changing.
there,
We don't
the
have any
choice
choice.
there
Yeah,
is, do
just
we want
math.
less than that? And I
Right.
think we would all say
Yeah.
no. So to me, like that's that's
Yeah.
personally like a simple vote. I agree the vote on some of the other stuff. It's not simple. I am not sure what other information I guess we would get in the next few days that would, but I'm not,
But I think those decisions don't need to go in the warrant. So what's important for the warrant is our total budget. So the
Yep.
68 million, which is just math. And as Matt just mentioned, we're not voting on less. I don't think I hear anybody wanting to do that. And then we've got the capital outlay that was given to us, and that's just based on what they give us. The decisions on what ends up being cut or proposed, the proposals for what's being cut, I think those we can continue to discuss if we're not comfortable voting on those tonight. But tonight, I think what's the most important is to get the numbers that need to go into the warrant.
That's, sorry, one thing to consider with that is that there is a deadline in the teacher contract. So if they're going to be
3/15.
layoffs, they have to be notified by March 15th. So we really would need to vote on those particular cuts tonight. If it's other areas, then you're exactly right, we have more time. But for the teachers, we do need to decide.
And then what does that look like if things happen in negotiations that require other reductions and they happen after March 15th? I'm assuming we just decide those as a committee and then give the notice right away?
Because we have things in the budget that are, oh, sorry, go ahead, Carrie.
Yeah, so if anything like that would be unanticipated because we don't know where negotiations are going to land, but the ones that, the amount that we're cutting right now, those aren't anticipated, so we had a big discussion about this last year too. But so those we would talk about as we went, and just give people as much notice as possible.
Yeah, I was just thinking of that 99,000 with because that's a tentative, isn't it?
Those are proposals, based upon
Proposals.
proposals, yep.
I mean, if it is that we don't have to go through, if it is, for example, the proposal is not agreed to by the HEA, and we don't have to, we decided they don't want that proposal, then it could be something we don't have to reduce. And if we don't have to reduce something, that's a good thing, right?
Then you would have to vote on those recalls of those positions back.
But the ones that are currently proposed is based on what we know right now, based on what we've reached as far as our proposals.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay,
I think we can assume that the salary and the COLA isn't gonna
go down, right?
Right.
Carrie? Oh, hi. It's actually old business, so typically we don't take questions during old business. We had a public hearing a couple weeks back, so that would have been the time to ask the questions. So this is our chance to deliberate as a school committee and take the vote. No, it's okay. I appreciate the question.
That people could take classes elsewhere. I'm concerned about the art teacher at the high school because that's going to a third. I think that's a lot. It's a large proportion, and it means so much to the social emotional needs of so many kids besides the kids going up.
Yep, no, it's okay. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, that goes along with the least impact to students. That would be an impact to students. There were other items last year that we were looking at the middle school that could potentially, in my opinion, replace that aren't impacting to the students.
Remember, these were the recommendations from the principals based upon the analysis of the enrollment across their courses, course selections from students in the past, a review of their schedule. So there was a lot of, this is their recommendation and their feelings of what they felt had the least impact on the students. Of course, every reduction has an impact. These are staff members who are doing work every day with our students. So it always has an impact. But they felt these were the ones that had the least impact on the programs that we're able to offer at the schools. So this was their recommendations. And like was said, we do have a deadline of March 15th, so we do need to vote on those reductions. If we need to make more reductions, we'll be coming back with some suggestions and of what those might be. But again, the school committee can decide what those reductions ultimately are.
And there's some things that we included in the first round last year that we're not including here, because based on the feedback from principals, it's the things that we want to behold as being very important. So for example, the MTSS that you've heard many times, the principals have said that they want to keep and maintain because of the progress that we've made with our students because of the MTSS. So I think that we've tried to keep those items as part of the budget and not reduce them, even if those were the last things to come in to us in terms of our programming.
So how about we frame it this way? So under new items, which is our discussion for proposed layoffs, so you would be able to come up. We could talk about the budget right now, vote on what we think on the budget. The other areas that would be up for debate are the fees, I guess. So we can have a discussion on that, and then when we move to new items, we can talk about the actual positions. Okay, so based on what we know so far of the budget, do we feel comfortable making the operational budget vote currently? Okay, do I have a motion?
For the full budget?
Yeah.
Yes, I will move to approve the fiscal year 25 budget of $68,003,624.
I will second.
Any further discussion on that? All those in favor? Matt?
Aye.
Ally? Tim?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Carrie?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. And then we have the over 2% and then the capital outlay.
Yes. I'm not trying to find the capital outlay.
Right here. 921, 714.
Okay. Do you want to do the MOU first for the town?
Yeah, the over 2%.
Yep.
I don't have that. Aisha, do you have that
I have
separate?
it.
Oh, you have it. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so I move to request a $1,438,355
Sorry.
funding from the town under the MOU relative to out-of-district special ed costs.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Matt?
Aye.
Ally? Tim?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Carrie?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Okay, and then we've got the capital outlay one.
All right, and then for capital, I will move to recommend, or I will move to approve a capital outlay budget of $921,714.
I will second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Matt?
Aye.
Ally?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Carrie?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Okay. Okay, so then the other things to talk about are the athletic fee proposal increase, which would include increase to hockey, and then a request for the new fee of high school activities. Because correct me if I'm wrong, Aisha, the facilities, you had proposed increases to the facility usage. We did do that,
We did
right?
not.
Or we did not.
No.
It's a total effort.
So it's just a 5% increase.
It's just a 5% increase. Okay, so we're going to try and vote on that tonight.
Yes, please.
Okay. All right, so.
And as a reminder, these fee increases are basically just to keep up with the costs in terms of coolers and the cost of utilities and everything else as part of providing services as well too.
Okay.
No, sorry, I'm just thinking, do we want to move to approve these now, or do we want to talk about cuts to see if that
Impacts this.
impacts this?
Would it impact that? I don't know if it
You
would
mean, would you
impact that.
consider, so I'm not sure.
You're gonna raise the fee?
Personally, I'm not sure we can raise even more than
I know.
these. Like,
Yeah.
I know this is hard to cut people really hard, but this is already asking a lot as well of people.
Yep.
So I guess I'm comfortable voting
Okay.
on these now,
Yep.
but
That's what I
And I
just
think
wanted to.
Aisha in the past too has kind of talked about that break-even point at which we can raise them to, and it's really not going to cover much else beyond that. So I'm comfortable with it.
All right, so I will move to increase the athletic fee from $375 to $425. Hockey will pay an additional fee will remain at the $200 differential, so sorry, so, which will include hockey being $625. Increasing the family cap from $950 to $1,100. And for hockey families, the cap will be raised from $1,000 to $1,300.
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, Matt?
Aye.
Ally? Tim?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Carrie?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well.
I will move to maintain the current kindergarten full-day fee at the tuition cost of $2,950, so no change from last year.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of Matt?
Aye.
Ally? Tim?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Carrie?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well.
I will move to increase the facilities fees by 5% in facility rental fees to cover costs incurred by community use of the schools.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, Matt?
Aye.
Ally? Tim?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Carrie?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well.
The kids in action and pre-K already voted on before.
Okay.
So that's one we
I
can
knew we
skip.
voted on
I
it.
knew we voted on something too, okay.
Definitely remember where we're gonna be. Thank you. Okay. All right, and we don't have to vote on the middle school fee. 'cause
Right.
that's
But the high school
staying
one,
forward, yes.
yeah.
All right, so I will make a motion to approve a new fee to be charged to high school for activities and clubs of $100.
Second.
Any further discussion?
You know what, I'm sorry, I do. So just to clarify, $100 per student.
Yes.
Yes.
Is there a cap?
No.
It's 100, no
Flat.
matter how many, yeah.
Mhm.
Like the middle school.
Well, a little bit different from the middle school in that there's a family cap for the middle school.
Yes.
Yes, but it'll
That's
just
what
be a
made me
flat
think about
100 because of the number. There's so many more activities that
Yeah.
kids, yeah.
Okay. All right, so just, no cap.
All those in favor, Matt?
Aye.
Ally? Tim?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Carrie?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, all right, so now we are approved on our budgets. We can go to new business. So this is the difficult part. 7.1, to review proposed layoffs and act as appropriate. Anything further to add from your presentation?
Just to say, the process is governed by the agreement between the Hingham School Committee and the Hingham Education Association Unit A. So what we're asking tonight is a vote on the layoffs that pertain to Unit A, which will allow us to be in compliance with that contractual agreement. The layoff notices, as Carrie mentioned, need to be issued by March 15th. In addition, the contractual bargaining agreement asks that volunteers be solicited, which we did do in the previous weeks. No volunteers did come forward. Tonight, you would need to vote overall individually on all of the layoffs, naming the positions as well. And then seniority would determine who the actual individual would be, who would be laid off. And we would apply the contractual agreements to determine that.
Any questions? Thoughts, feedbacks before I open it up? I know.
I'm struggling with this student facing. This is a lot of student facing positions.
I'm trying to find, so I've been searching for I can't find that anywhere. I'm looking for last year's, like, what were the 50 or 60 potential positions? Because I hear you that we don't want to, it's a year later, so of course things can change. I just can't find it. Does anyone remember where that went?
Yeah, I can give it to you.
Right here. Do you think you might be able to pull it up, Aisha?
Yeah.
I think we prioritized a lot of the MTS that we had, the MTSS kind of resources, positions that were added during COVID in response. As you heard from the principals, in addition to our increased special education numbers, we need to build systems and processes that address in Tier 1 within the general education program the needs of students. So we prioritize not reducing those. We also prioritize not reducing some of the counseling positions that we have prioritized the SEL behavioral health needs of students. You've seen our increased special education costs, our numbers, and so we didn't touch those positions as well. So it sort of, and you've seen the enrollment numbers, which led us to look at positions at the middle and high school specifically.
So I guess I feel like everything you just said could have been said last year, right? Like but last year it was a different list. Enrollment is down, it's kind of steady from where it was last year. So like that's what I'm trying to get after. I don't really feel qualified to try and make a decision on one person versus another person, but I'm trying to just understand how in a year, because I feel like that all was the case last year. We had declining enrollment. We knew we wanted to maintain MTSS. We wanted new SEL. We knew sped costs were increasing. Is it just?
We fought for the override so that we wouldn't lose those positions.
Right.
For a balanced budget.
And more than just that too, but in terms of, I think that we've had more years to see the successes of MTSS, and with the increases pressure that we've had with special education as well. Not only do we don't only have the cost of special education increasing in terms of the tuition numbers, but in terms of the number of kids that are we have behavioral issues in terms of specialized services that we need, and the number of students that we're evaluating to determine who goes out is also being increased as well. Whereas last year for special education, the biggest issue was the cost going to 14%, right? So with those increases in special education overall, not only in terms of the tuition amounts, but in terms of the services that we need to provide, MTSS becomes even more important in my mind, because it's the only game that we have that can actually reduce the amount of special education costs that we have. So it's even, to me, the way I look at it is that it's even more important. Now that you've seen for us who are new to Hingham Public Schools, we've seen the second year of it for ourselves in terms of how it has worked.
I think this year we really dug into more of the data. I mean, you had a relatively new team. We took the role of sort of spreading it out, K through 12, so that it impacted all levels, to sort of spread it out. This year, different from, we did have that staffing audit, but we also dug into really closely the numbers where we saw a decline in enrollment, and that specifically was at the middle and high school, looking at sections, course sections, of course, selections of students, looking at average class sizes, and what are the staffing that could be reduced with everything has impact on students, with the least impact on the students moving forward.
Yeah, I guess I can speak. I guess
Yeah.
in my question, I guess my statement kind of goes off to kind of what Matt was saying, is that why this year and not last year, and why numbers are pretty much the same, give or take 50, 75 kids, the high school, middle school, or when we were adding the 32 positions, why enrollment was also down then.
And we're still searching, but like last year, the proposal was to have 27 FTEs at the elementary level. We're saying 1 this year. I hear the logic of high school but that, I mean, that's a huge difference. And I guess a lot of that is sped, I think. Almost all of it is sped, is that, sorry, I'm talking about last year's 27. Is that right? I know this is a year ago.
So I'm pulling it up right now.
Long time ago, I believe it was the reading specialist, math specialist, interventionist, speech and language.
So we had the MTSS coordinator, again, MTSS, writing specialist,
Yep, science specialist.
Paraprofessionals, for kindergarten paraprofessionals, reading and math interventionists, K-5 field science teacher, special education administrator, early childhood coordinator to reduce that by 0.2, and then textbooks and supplies. That was at the elementary. I guess
What was the middle high school?
the middle school, 2 math tutors, that is the same as this year. A library paraprofessional, that's the same as this year. A regular paraprofessional, a science teacher, 0.4, an art teacher, 0.8. So it's not the middle school is not very different from what it was the last time, as well as textbooks and supplies. Right, so actually the middle school is very similar, right? Go ahead.
I don't know if it helps, Matt. I know you had asked how to do the math on how it would actually impact average class size. And so each 1.0 FTE corresponds to 5 sections. So for example, I just took a look at history, I think you'd asked that question earlier. So currently our history courses are at average class sizes of 16.9. So in losing 10 sections, that would bring us to average class sizes of 19.3.
In high school, can you do, that's helpful. Aisha, can you do the high school one too?
Okay. A library paraprofessional, a health teacher, 0.5 health teacher. And we also had some retirements at the high school that were not filled. I think we had a science retirement at the high school.
Yeah, so when Michelle took over my position,
Yes.
we did not fill that.
That position, yeah.
So we have lost 2 positions in science due to attrition and retirements.
And we have 2 positions this year that we have savings on because of attrition, correct?
Right.
2
The
retirements.
ELA and the math.
Right, and I just want to also bring to your attention as well that we were also increasing our fees when we looked at, because when I look at last year's presentation as well, we also had transportation where we were getting 234,000. So it means that we were putting in place a bus fee, right?
Eliminating athletics, like JV.
And then athletics, we increased the fee by that one as well last
And
year.
eliminating.
No, but we're, eliminating JV.
Right.
Right, exactly,
Eliminate
yes.
the JV,
The
that's right.
JV sports. Yep, thank you.
Yep, freshman, yeah.
What's the impact of the teacher on this?
Allie, what's the date of that one that you're looking at?
It was actually in the budget.
Can't find it on this back.
It was what?
I have it here, but I can't find it.
Oh, okay, got it. Yeah, I was just looking at my folders.
Sitting between Jen and Ellie, you think I'm gonna try to find something on my computer?
I just keep pulling up real occasions of efficiencies. I don't have the
I know, it's
actual
over.
budgets. Oh, here they are. Here they are. That doesn't give the positions
Right.
though. Maintenance. Students.
I think the big thing was that last year, really, it was that $1.2 million that we were finding from the moving technology out of and kindergarten fees. That, yes, I mean, because I feel like,
That was 300 of the technology, right?
Yeah.
yes, and the PD was increasing 200, and the nursing coordinator. I mean, I don't know, I guess I think Matt said it, I also don't feel qualified to be making these choices of which departments are getting impacted by it. But I could understand that from year to year, impact is going to be different. Like last year, what we thought was we would have to cut could be different than what we were cutting this year. And I think also last year, because the cuts were so incredibly drastic. I think we're obviously all grappling with the fact that nobody wants to do this.
Right.
I'm just grappling with the enrollment.
So, I've also, I know we have an
Yeah.
oversight role in this. I also have heard a lot of people disabled feel, I don't feel qualified to go through and, you know, I think we hire people who are qualified to do that, and they're the principals. And part of me is like, unless we have a really solid argument about why we're going against the principals for what they're recommending, so that, because the recommendation was, if I'm wrong, Margaret, that you ask the principals what can be cut that will affect student life the least, or affect the student. And I know focus on student facing is sometimes a little bit misleading, because oftentimes you can remove someone who's not student facing, but then that job needs to then be done by someone who was student facing. It still has this trickle down effect.
Right.
I guess I'm looking for, I know it's a different list. It's a slightly different list last year. In some schools it's very similar. But is there a real argument why we wouldn't trust the professionals that we hired to do? And I mean that legitimately. I don't mean that sounds like a very leading question, but like, is there a reason why we wouldn't take what they're giving us at face value if we know other information that maybe they don't know, or we have a larger full district picture, or we're prioritizing different things for the district than the principals are?
Yeah, I mean, I was hearing that the class sizes that Katie had just pointed out, I had heard that there was a music class that had 3 or 4 students in there. Clearly, there's not enough interest in that. So, you know, you need to prioritize the classes that do have more interest. One thing that I keep grappling with is the last year there were kindergarten paras that were put on, as far as those would be removed. So wonder if that would be something that you would consider this year versus some of these other teachers. But I guess I know that there's the social emotional side, usually on the secondary level, and then the learning loss on the elementary level. So I don't know how that impacts each of those levels and what you would consider, but has that been considered, the paras?
I mean, it was part of our discussions, and we felt that the needs of the students and the class size warranted the keeping the paras. If that's what the will of the committee is, then we'll make do. But I think it would be a new idea and a challenging one at this point in the budget cycle for us to sort of say to introduce that idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think the tough thing, I mean, again, I think the issue is nobody wants to cut people, right? And that's what this comes down to. But there's also the Sophie's choice here, right? I mean, it's a horrible decision no matter what. And I don't, not having paras in the kindergarten classroom and not having a world language teacher at the middle school, like I mean, it unfortunately is what it is. I think it just shows us that last year's override was about keeping the lights on. Didn't give us a penny more than what we needed, other than give us a little bit more for small things. But I mean, really, what it did was it kept the lights on. And I think last year we were hopeful that enrollment would come back up, and that we. So I think that was part of it too.
And yeah, that's just continues to be the issue that I have, is that why was enrollment not an issue last year, but it is this year? When we asked the town to vote for the 3.9 million to add to our budget, and when we were questioned about enrollment, we said it wasn't an issue, but now we're using that as the argument to cut these positions, and I completely agree with what Tim was saying, that trust people that are here, the administration, by telling us if we do need to make cuts, where to make them. I completely agree with you on that. It's just the idea behind why enrollment wasn't an issue last year, but it is this year, and the numbers are pretty much the same.
We're not, if I can clarify something, we're not cutting positions because of enrollment. We're using enrollment as a guidepost to determine which positions to cut. I think those are different things.
why we have to cut this.
Not the
Because
district enrollment.
enrollment's down.
What enrollment per school, per classes, what people are signing up for.
I feel like we have the staffing audit to help guide us this year.
We had that last year.
More information.
And we did it extra this year too. We actually we dug deeper this year in terms of looking at each classroom, we didn't look at the sections last year and get the numbers. And as Dr. Adams mentioned before, we've been here 2 years now, right? We can look deeper into what is happening. We can make a better assessment in terms of if there are reductions that need to be made. Work with the principals to figure out where those reductions need to happen, and of course with the least impact. But are you thinking that is there something else that you'd like to propose in terms of what those cuts should be?
I think unfortunately my first area would be everything they're in. What you said earlier, they're in not negotiations. They're in contracts. There are some positions I did not realize were in contracts. On the school committee, we don't get those. We're not privy to the contracts that you make with those individuals. I think that makes it a little challenging too.
Right, and I mean those things
I didn't
as
know
well,
a certain
right?
position was in a 3-year contract.
Right. So
No idea.
Yep. So I mean,
Yeah,
so
and some of
given
those
that,
positions we inherited
we
that way,
inherited
so.
those, right?
And the contracts, so.
Right, and so given the fact that those contracts are the way they are, is there something else that you'd like to do?
Specifically?
Yeah.
Why don't we take a pause? Why don't we take public comment, and then we can circle back and deliberate? Does that sound fair?
Yeah.
Okay. So I know I have somebody in the audience who would like to come up and share some ideas and thoughts. If you could state your name and address, please.
Thank you. Cynthia McKeon, 186 High Street. I'm just really concerned about the high school art position. Granted, I'm an art teacher at the elementary school, but I know that it's a mistake to assume that all college-bound children are going on to a liberal arts school. I went to a liberal arts school, loved it, but not everybody does. Also, that MTSS only pertains to math and literacy and all the liberal art kind of tested classes. Personal story, my daughter's very smart, had a very specific special learning disability, and art really did save her life. If she didn't have it at the high school, I cannot imagine where she'd be right now. She was a graphic design major at RIT, and she got in there because of the art education here. I'm also concerned because of Mr. Ishao, the graphic design teacher, is now teaching 2D art. Who's going to be teaching all those graphic design courses the kids really want to take as well? How are you going to meet individual potential of these kids who want to go on in the arts if they can't take the classes they want to take, if you're cutting it by a third, the department at the high school? And art really does meet the social emotional needs of so many children. For me, I often see the kids who have specific learning disabilities flourish in the art classroom. I don't see them at the high school. I just know my own daughter, and I'm worried for those kids at the high school. Cutting a program by a third, you can't just take another class. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Jacqueline.
Jacqueline Beaupre, president of the HEA. It's really hard to address specific positions being cut because they're all really important. It's going to impact options for students that are interested in the global perspective. Can't know really where we're going if we don't know the past, so history is important. Obviously, art is critical, and cutting the fine arts teacher, that's a whole style of art that's going to be hard to address without that staff member. The library is a place where lots of kids go, not just for finding resources and learning information literacy, but it's also kind of a drop zone where kids go and can socialize in a academic way. So cutting the librarian at the middle school, and it seems like that's going to impact the lives of middle schoolers possibly significantly. World language, we live in a global society, and Spanish is pretty important right now. So that seems like a really bad idea. So I look at all of these, and my phone just blew up when you even mentioned kindergarten paras. So so all of them are important. And I guess I just want to just express some concern that there's positions at Central that principals cannot comment on. So they probably would say, do we really need the person that is making cool little drone movies of the new Foster Building Project? Is that really what's going to help students succeed academically and social emotionally? Nope. That's not a student-facing position that we really need. So, I mean, we don't know also what's contracted individually, but I think we're all learning lessons about how to do that in the future. And I'm also just going to express some concern that we're talking about cuts, and kind of the subtext is this is happening because of negotiations. And it's worrisome to me that the starting offer is basically what you budgeted. So that was a really big mistake when you budgeted last year, to walk in already over budget, essentially. So what happened last year when we asked for that override? And are you guys making the same mistake again? And when is that going to stop? That's all.
We've got, next is Ann Matthews. If you can unmute, state your name and address.
Hi, this is Ann Matthews, 28 Hersey Street. I'm on the CPAC board, and I apologize, I joined a little bit late. Can you clarify if part of the layoffs that you're talking about are the elementary and secondary SPED administrators?
Margaret, do you want to answer that?
They are not cuts that are being proposed by the district. So I guess the answer is no,
Yeah, no.
unless the school committee adds that position as a consideration.
Okay. Okay. Christina O'Connor, if you can unmute and state your name and address.
Hi there, my name is Christina O'Connor, and I live at 4 Elizabeth Lane. And I just wanted to echo everything that Jacqueline has said tonight. And as a history teacher at the high school, I wanted to note that I appreciate the shout outs for all of the accomplishments of our students tonight at National History Day. We are really proud of that program. We have done it every year. I have been teaching here. I've been teaching here for 22 years. And the 2 history positions that were cut, most recently one today, which was shocking. Both of those teachers also teach U.S. history, representing 7 sections of United States history, which is a required course for graduation. And I recognize that those duties will be redistributed, and those students will likely add to my class numbers, along with those of my colleagues who also teach U.S. history. But I just want to point out that while we are so proud of those accomplishments at the National History Day, it takes a lot of work for our teachers to help our students and coach our students to make those achievements. And I am truly crushed that 2 of my colleagues have been cut in the last 2 years. And as a side note, I would just add that those 2 colleagues are Hingham High School graduates whom I taught and who also participated in the National History Day project and were also venerated by people in your positions at that time back when they did it. So while I know that all of these positions are important, I just wanted to appreciate that on the one hand, we're talking about the accomplishments of our history students coached by our history teachers, and on the next level, or the next item on the agenda, we are talking about slicing 2 of those positions. So thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Okay. All right. So if, say again?
My answer to Aisha's question is supplies and Chromebooks.
Supplies and Chromebooks?
It's just is that an area where we can save some money?
You wanted to
I mean, I
institute-
feel like I have my kids' Chromebooks from high school are still sitting in.
You wanted to
their
institute a
rooms.
fee for the Chromebooks at sixth grade?
Can they, the outgoing eighth graders, is there any way that those Chromebooks can be reused for the incoming sixth graders?
I think Joe would say probably, just imagine your middle schooler has had their Chromebook in their backpack. And refurbishing those is really challenging after the 3 years of the middle schoolers using them. They are used, they're brought up to the high school and used as loaners up at the high school and also to repair other Chromebooks. But after 3 years of use by the middle schoolers, they have
I
pretty.
have two at home I have to contribute to the
Unless you
pile
want to
'cause
add a
they're
fee to
perfectly
the
good condition, not
Chromebooks
being
in
used.
sixth grade, when they come in, we can charge a fee to get a Chromebook. That could be something else, if that's what you're suggesting there.
Just for your own information, I was counting, there are 19 classes in the history department under 15. There are 10 classes in the arts under 8.
And so what happens to the Pathways program in
Yeah.
art?
I was wondering that too.
I think it continues. They're just, we would have to do better scheduling around consolidating those courses. And again, they might be offered only at specific times in the schedule, so kids are going to have to make choices. But the class sizes are very small with the 3 art teachers that we currently have, with 10 classes under 8. And again, we have 19 classes, 19 sections in history with under 15.
When the schedule is done, sorry, one second. When the schedule is done, do the principals meet with the directors? So like Joanne Bellis would be included in that process?
Yes. Do you want to talk to that process? You've been involved in that. over
Sure,
years.
yeah, so basically right after April vacation, so as soon as we have what we call the simple tallies for different courses, each director prepares a proposed course assignment that is discussed with the middle school and high school principals and with Dr. Adams and myself. And we don't have that data yet, and it does fluctuate from year to year. So when I was a science director, for example, some years we might have enough students to offer 3 sections of anatomy and physiology. Some years it would just be 1, and it was all dependent on enrollment. So it's really hard to get a firm sense of class sizes and some of the course offerings until we have that firm data. So that is actively ongoing this week. So the middle school students are entering their options as we speak. And so once we have that firm data, that process begins. So.
When you're talking about some students having to make choices, do you see scenarios where students have to make choices for a class that's a prerequisite for their path over the next 2 or 3 years, where that would set them back a year or two?
So I'll give you an example. So my own son, I promise never to speak of him at meetings, but here it is. So he studies French, and he is in the band, and so that will create some bottlenecks in his schedule. In that band is only offered at very limited times, and French is only offered at very limited times, and so directors will come forth with a proposal to the high school principals, and then using a combination of X2, which is our Aspen management system, it will try to maximize the course schedule to get as many students their first choice as possible. That said, we also then go in and do some hand scheduling. So for science courses, for example, I used to do some hand scheduling there to make sure that teacher lab preps were back to back. So we didn't have an oceans lab and then swap that up for a chemistry lab. So so there's a combination of using technology and then using some hand scheduling. So it's kind of an elaborate process. So it begins right after April vacation is when that work begins in earnest, and usually by mid-May we have those course sections pretty well in hand, and then the principal will go further with the schedule. So
Do the numbers from year to year fluctuate a little? I know they fluctuate, obviously. Do they fluctuate wildly?
So where it gets challenging is in some of the courses for which we have fewer sections. So I gave the example of anatomy and physiology. So because in science classes we don't run sections larger than 24 because that's what our lab is built for. If we have in a given year 48 students, you divide that by 2 and that would be 2 sections. But if we tip the balance and have 53 students, we're now averaging 3 sections with relatively small numbers. So there are constraints like that on some of the nichier courses. Biotech is another example. So for biotechnology, we run anywhere between 1 to 3 sections depending on the student choice and enrollment for that year. I would say very similar for some of the other disciplines, like arts, like industrial technology.
So are this year's enrollment number, in specific class enrollment numbers for courses, is that useful information in determining for next year?
It is, and I, again, in my prior role as science director, I would track things longitudinally over time, and particularly so we can predict, for example, how, with reasonable certainty, how many students will be enrolling in biology next year because it's a required course. Those sections are much easier to predict. It's the junior and senior electives in particular that are much more challenging to predict at this point.
Okay.
So.
Can we go back to the arts teacher a little bit? I have some concern just because, as you mentioned, there are some sections that are really small, but the students are all also required to take an arts class. So I worry about the juniors and seniors who are being funneled in and now are required to take a class, and there are going to be fewer offerings of those classes, and then also the arts pathway students who are layering those classes on, so they may have already taken several classes, and if we remove some sections, there might not be options for them to continue. So are we sure that there's enough different class sections that will be offered for those students to meet those requirements?
Just to make one clarification, the graduation requirement for arts is defined broadly.
It's very broad.
And so
Yes.
that would include not only the visual arts, but it also includes the performing arts. It includes music as well.
Yeah, and for the music students, it's much easier because
Family and consumer science.
it includes industrial technology as well.
Yep.
There's kind of an art component there. So
And family and consumer science?
I would have to double check.
Yeah, I thought it was.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Yes, to design and.
So there are multiple ways,
Yes.
multiple ways to meet that requirement.
So would we be eliminating fine arts? It does not sound like
Just
that.
one
Okay.
teacher.
No, we're
8
going from 3 teachers at the high school to 2.
which is the third. Right. But all the current arts offerings would still be offered. It would just, there's going to be obviously scheduling piece to that.
And again, it's based upon student interest, so having enough students to be able to run the course.
I'm guessing with the new arts pathways, interest is not going down for next year.
Not going down, right?
Right.
Yeah.
We do have another question. Laura Donnelly, if you could state your name and address.
Good evening, I'm Laura Donnelly, 98 Manatee Road. I have a few points. The first is in cutting the arts program by a third because we are losing enrollment on the middle school and the high school, has me thinking, does that make us less marketable to parents whose children are interested in the arts? Are we going to lose more students because we're cutting our arts program by a third? I also think about, of course, from a very selfish standpoint, my child is going to be entering their final year at Hingham High School and has planned his entire schedule around taking certain arts programs that might not be available to him his senior year. And his greatest interest is going to an arts school upon graduation. So, are we talking about hurting children who are at the end of their education journey, such as the high school students, or should we think about students who are at the beginning of their education journeys, like the kindergarten paras, let the kindergartners have time to recover. And that's it. I just wanted to throw those points out to you.
Thank you. I wonder about, and I know I don't want the daggers thrown, but I wonder, I think last year, the proposal for the paras in the kindergarten, are there two per school?
Each classroom has one.
Each class, I wonder if there's an ability to share a para? And, no, okay, all right.
I think because it's challenging.
I'm not the
because
expert.
Core academics are usually happening in the morning. That's when you would want the most personnel in the classroom to support the students.
I think I would just add to that, Miss, at the kindergarten orientation, when we field questions from families, that is the number one question, most frequently asked question that we have is, what is the ratio of adults to children? And there was more specific questions around, do we have kindergarten paraprofessionals? So it was a high priority for the kindergarten families enrolling.
And sorry.
Sorry.
No, I was
You
just
wanna
saying
add to
that, just to add to that as well, that part of the fee that we collect contributes to teacher and para costs as well.
Yeah.
I think you muted it yourself, including mute all.
Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I unfortunately did that. Sorry, Sherry. Matt.
So I have a question on the high schools. We have one ELA, one math, two history, one world language. In the middle school, we've had historically and more so more recently sort of combining of having multiple levels in one class. Is losing these teachers make that more likely at the high school?
That's already a practice at the high school in some levels. So like 3s and 4s are combined in some classes.
Yeah, and then we started doing more like 1, 2s in the middle school, I think 1s and 2s, right? And last year and.
Yeah, so for example, in science at the high school, the anatomy, biotech would be a better example, currently has level 2 and 3 students in the same room, just taking different assessments.
So that's currently a practice, combining levels in a class.
So
depending on the number of students and.
Is it something that we want to do more of? And having less teachers, it might seem that we'd maybe be forced into it. Is that accurate, I guess?
We already do it because of numbers in order to balance the class and actually have a class. And, you might only have 2 students in a level 4. You're not going to have a class of just 2 students. You're going to combine it with another level.
Right. Yeah. And last year when I was talking to Mr. Smith, sorry, about this, like that kind of was the focus on like 3 and 4. We do it all the time, but then we also, I think we're doing more so of 2 and 3 and 1 and 2. I think that was a change last year, I believe, in math or English. The middle school?
No.
Or social studies?
No.
I'm thinking middle school.
I'm talking
In the middle school.
It was a change last year. I voted against it.
Yeah.
I mean, that definitely was a change last year.
So I'm looking at a seminars in history class has 16 level 2, 8 level 3, and 1 level 4. So there's 3 levels in one class.
So this would probably make that even more likely to happen, even more. It's done today, probably would be even more likely to happen.
It might, but we already currently do it. I mean, it depends on the student selections, what they're recommended for. So there's multiple factors that go into, sort of balancing the classes. Obviously, if we have enough level 4 and level 3, we're going to try to combine them to make a class. But if we don't, we have to include other levels in order to make a full class.
So is it like, would we say it's pervasive at the high school across all disciplines that we have multi-levels in most classes?
Yeah, it's the first I've heard of this.
It's been a long-standing practice in upper level electives. So
Right,
again,
I'm focused on ELA,
The core.
basically the core and the courses that were, the teachers were eliminate, or some are retiring. ELA, math, history, world language.
At the high school, because of scheduling and because once you go on a certain track, like for math specifically, for a sophomore, if they're taking kind of that in-between class, it's the same as a junior's level 3 class. So there's some combination just based on scheduling, and once you're taking a certain class, the offerings are the same. That compressive.
Students can sometimes.
Alex, yes.
I might have not said that.
You were asking about how it currently exists at the high school. Personally, I'm currently taking 2 courses that include students from multiple levels. You mentioned biotechnology earlier. That's one of the courses I'm taking, and that includes, I believe, upper standard and honor students, which I take as an honor student, but whatever. That's not the relevant part. And then for both of my half-year English courses that I've been taking as a senior, I have been in classes where I'm with multiple levels, and the way that's worked has been, I believe, it's generally been like a different grading rubric for like large assignments or.
And are those are
whatever.
the English, are those electives, or those are?
So electives your senior year?
Yes, I think they'd
yeah.
be considered electives.
So maybe this is a separate discussion. I mean, I do think it's relevant for this discussion a little bit, but like, I guess I definitely want to understand how, because what I'm hearing is it's relatively pervasive, which makes sense to me in electives. I guess I'm not clear on how pervasive it is in our core subjects in the high school.
Yeah,
It seems like in core academics, it's levels 3 and 4 that are often combined because the whole student body is taking them, so you have a larger group to choose from. So you're combining your levels 3 and 4 and possibly your levels, your higher levels. So it seems like it's more pervasive to say combining the 3s and the 4s.
Because of the numbers?
Because of the numbers. You just have everybody has to take the course because it's a required course. It's a required English course. So you just have a larger pool to start from. Versus an elective, like a biotech, the numbers are smaller that you're starting with. So you're going to have to combine the levels in that class.
Slater? No? You're good. Okay. Got it.
Is there, and then for field science, that was last year, is there one per school?
There's one for the whole district.
For the whole
and
district.
So that is, so he teaches every grade 5 student in the district, and it would have significant impact on student science experience and MCAS as well. We actually were part of Rennie Center research project a few years back, looking at why our science scores were so high. We were one of 4 or 5 districts that were part of the study, and they did find that having an elementary science specialist was a key factor in the districts that do perform well in science, and it does have impact on preparation for middle school as well. So
I didn't realize he had such a busy schedule.
yes, yeah. So he's in all 4 buildings across town. 0.6 of his position is directly student facing. The other 0.4 he's pushing in for model lessons to K4. So it's very much a student facing position, and sees every 5th grader.
There are no easy cuts.
No, and I think that's why I wanted to provide the context with the history, because it's, we have had challenging years, and the town had gotten by with higher budgets for the school in the past when we were trying to recover from not getting all of East staffing. We did that with new growth. That new growth is no longer there. The Sustainable Budget Task Force has shown that we are a town that ran lean, and we poked at every different revenue option, and there are things that the select board's currently working on now. But the override last year, again, being the size that it was, I feel as if the process last year for us was extremely transparent. I thought that you had put everything out on the table as far as what we were at risk of losing. There has been discussion about whether we should have asked for more, and with 40% of the voters turning out and saying no, I worry that it wasn't going to pass. It was a significant override with a lot of years of work. People sitting at this table, we were, I was sitting at my kitchen table with many people throughout the town trying to figure out how to promote this and get people educated and bringing people along. And I think the I think the one good thing that came out of COVID was that it got people to engage in why we are in the predicament that we are. Matt is here as a result. So he is joining in the conversation and understanding the pressure points that we were facing. And it's not easy. It's really hard. And nobody wants to make cuts. But we also have to respect what the voters are saying. And we have asked for a very large override with the promise that we weren't going to do another one for a number of years. And that doesn't necessarily mean that the conversation in the community is over. I think that was the whole point of Prop 2.5, is to force us to have conversations with everybody in the community and get everybody engaged and what is important. And we need to continue to do that as we look forward to the next override, which is a few years away. Last year I was saying we can't, during the work through the sustainable budget, I said we cannot get to 3.5 until we've right-sized the ship here at the school, because we won't be in position. We're still trying to recover and get there. And this time last year, we had said we have all of the things that we need. There were maybe a couple other positions that would be a nice to have, but we had all of the things that we need. And it is hard looking back and realizing that there are some economic pressure points that are making this difficult. But it's the position that we're in.
So are we going school by school, or is it all one motion?
You have to go position by position.
So I think you could make one motion that names all the positions.
There's no way, and I was gonna ask last time, there's no wiggle room to make, so it's only one social studies teacher as opposed to the two.
So you'd have to replace that with the equivalent of whatever the cost is. So we'd have to make a cut somewhere else to address that amount of money, which you have it budgeted as.
What I was able to do is actually look at the actual,
So it's probably approximately.
yeah, about 80,000.
80,000?
80 to 90,000.
I'm operating on the assumption that this will not be the last time we talk about staff rifts this year. Because the process isn't finished yet. Out of fairness to the HA and to teachers, we need to make a vote on this and a decision on this tonight so that people can get their notice in a timely manner. Can we get information? I assume this is not the end of the list. If there are more rifts to be coming, can we start looking at that? I don't know. It feels like we're getting this list, and I know we've had this list before. I don't mean you're giving us this list too late. This is not the first time we've seen the list. This is the first time we've really discussed it fully as a committee.
I think there's a couple of new ones on here.
Yeah, there are a couple new ones.
And remember, that was in response to an increase in proposals.
Absolutely. Right.
Which happened recently.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying?
I'm just saying, I feel our backs against the wall because we have to vote on this tonight. And I've heard a lot of people say we should save the art teacher, we should save the history teacher, we should save the library paraprofessional. I've not heard anyone, people have, I don't think I haven't heard anyone making other suggestions. I don't know if any of those other suggestions have I don't know.
Yeah, like the textbooks or what was the other one that you brought up? Chromebooks, yeah. The supplies?
Supplies. We've cut a lot of it already, to the point where the directors have provided what they need to keep the curriculum going, and it's bare bones right now. We've cut a lot of stuff from there. And this is 2 rounds of cuts, because I did 1 round in the current budget, and then we did the second one for this 25 budget.
We would be cutting science materials, art materials, so supplies, wood for the industrial tech. So we're really at bare bones.
Yeah.
with what we've cut with curriculum. And again, we prioritize cutting, when we say curriculum too, that was inclusive of some of those supplies, but we would be getting at some of the consumable items that we just need on an annual
Right.
basis in order to run.
So in terms of if you want to choose to cut more supplies, I think we probably have to like decide to cut a program. So if you want to cut, let's say, family and consumer science, or cut the art program, that you'd have to cut a program because there wouldn't be no supplies to actually provide the program, right?
What about, there was an idea floated about putting the elementary schools on a 5-day specialist cycle. Does that have any savings if we were to do that instead of a 6-day cycle?
So it would mean cutting
A specialist.
a specialist, couple of specialists. So is that the preferred?
What about our substitute costs? Are we struggling with our substitute costs? Is there any wiggle room around there? Are we
To reduce them?
Are we able to fill, when we have to fill when a teacher's out and we have to have a substitute come in? Are there days where that doesn't happen? Is that something that, not that I'm promoting it, but I don't know, have you heard about how there's another district that doesn't have subs at the high school level? Again, just.
I mean, if
throwing
that's
ideas out
something
there,
the committee
not
like to do as a
necessarily
policy.
promoting it, just-
I'm not
something-
sure it gets us to that
Yes.
100 or not a hopeful position. It might get us, we might be able to reduce it, $10,000 or $15,000, but you still, we still would need to cover long-term leaves, short-term leaves. We've increased benefits for leaves, potentially in the
Yep.
proposals. We're concerned about, really understanding what the impact of that will be in the long term. So we'd have to be cautious about slashing the sub costs because we'd still need the subs to cover, and then we'd probably go into the negative. It doesn't get us close to the amount of a full position.
Another question.
I'm going to take Carrie Eric, if you can state your name and address. Thanks, Sherry. Carrie, if you can just unmute yourself. I think you've been asked to unmute. No. Okay, we'll come back. Any other thoughts, ideas? Okay. Carrie, do you think you can unmute now?
You texting with us?
Did we ask her to unmute?
Yeah, Sherry had done it before. Maybe Sherry, if you do it again. Yep. Did she think her hand went down and went back up?
I don't know. I thought it did. And we, the positions, those 33 positions we added, those were all MTSS positions, correct? We added
A lot of them.
a lot of them, and we're utilizing all of those.
I mean, at the middle school, we've also reduced to tutors, math tutors at the middle school, because some of the work that they'll be doing will be covered by the math specialists.
So we've already made those reductions.
So that's part of the reductions that we've
The
proposed.
2 math tutors is no more than from the 33 positions.
So in terms of the, so going back to what we proposed last time, I can just kind of give a little refresher. and
My last
probably a
question, I promise.
comparison. So for example, last year we suggested 2 math tutors. This year we're suggesting the same two math tutors. We suggested a library paraprofessional. We're doing the same thing this year. The 0.4 teacher, science teacher, do you remember, did we not replace somebody who left? We didn't replace that person, right?
Yes, that was at the middle school, and again, was observed, so again,
Right.
middle school actually had 2.4 reductions due to retirement of
Yep.
people leaving.
And then the point eight art teacher, we also suggested that last year, and we're suggesting it again this year. And we had a copy para. Remember that copy para?
An office para.
An office, sorry, an
office
office.
para
Yeah, an office para professional. That we also reduced as well. So in terms of, I think that for the middle school, it's very comparative compared to, what we suggested last year compared to what we were suggesting this year. I think that the big differences that we're seeing is that, I think what we've heard from the principals was that they really wanted to keep our MTSS system intact. And some of the things that they were that was suggested last year, even if these were suggestions, the principals did speak very, they spoke in terms of trying to keep those last year as well. It wasn't something that they wanted to lose either. And I think we've continued to want to keep those as well. The MTSS coordinator, 0.6, the writing specialist, the kindergarten paraprofessionals, 4 reading and math interventionists, the K-5 science teacher, a special education administrator, and 0.2 early childhood coordinator. The early childhood coordinator, we wouldn't reduce that position now because we're expanding the preschool, so we actually need to have these positions in place to be able to do that.
So, but isn't that
Self-funded?
Self-funded?
The preschool, the integrated preschool is not self-funded.
I didn't realize it was part of that program. Okay. I appreciate you going through that, Aisha.
No problem.
Let's see, Sarah Gordon, if you can. Oh, actually, she just went away.
I have Carrie's comment.
Okay, yeah, you want to read her comment?
Why don't why don't they allow health to be taken online? DESE allows for it. Can the high school offer more opportunities for virtual classes? Other high schools do it in Massachusetts.
I think they offer it a little bit now too, don't they? That for health.
I don't know.
I think they do.
I think
I've heard
with,
a couple kids do it. I've heard of virtual classes. Yeah.
I think with the health piece, I think with, there's been a lot of discussion in the wellness committee around kids' access to SEL and mental health and core health curriculum is really narrow at the high school. I mean, it's only that one course. And touching that particular course wasn't something that we wanted to consider because we've seen increased SEL needs, and they're magnified at the high school. We're seeing them among our high school students. We had the YRBS data is pointing to that significantly. It's one place where students are getting that information, and I wouldn't see a one-to-one match with an online version of health with the opportunity to engage with an adult and your peers to discuss issues around mental health, substance abuse. So it's a very small requirement at the high school, and eliminating or finding other ways to address that didn't seem in line with the data we've seen from the YRBS and other data at the high school.
The E2020 and Edgenuity are sort of a lot of the big online providers. I've taught their health program before. It's embarrassingly bad. It's awful. Like the student, it's a joke. That was several years ago too. They may have updated it, just in fairness to them. Like I should say that, but it was yikes. I did it once and I won't do it again. But we also, if they're talking about online opportunities, I know in doing some of the upper level language classes, there are online opportunities right now. Like advanced Chinese, I think is online.
I think there are some courses that are options for online. I don't know how many offhand, but I think that counselors would use online options through virtual high school and to provide access. We do use Edgenuity for kids who need credit recovery and kids who might have some SEL and medical needs. in order to access curriculum, so it is used occasionally.
Lots of
for that
engineering stuff
purpose.
is great. I'm
For-
only
for-
talking about their health.
Some of the AP classes even for scheduling conflicts and students who really wanted to take an AP. I know in the past have been offered too.
Yeah, I was gonna say that is definitely a thing, particularly for the arts, or at least back in the day when my kids were there with the arts students wanting to take chorus and AP English and other APs, and you were only take them in one block.
I know we haven't made any proposals in athletics. We're increasing the fees, but I thought there was some discussion last year when we were talking about possible cuts that we could possibly make cuts there, not necessarily to the freshman teams, but is there any additional positions that we might be able to look there? And my concern is, I appreciate the athletics provides the social emotional support that the kids need, but I also think that the arts does that as well. And the arts, if we're cutting a third of these kids who are planning to go to art school, or that is also their social emotional outlet that is actually provided for in school, we're cutting that versus cutting something in athletics when we provide so much funding to athletics currently. I know that we've got the fee that offsets some of the coaches, but some of our operating budget goes towards athletics, which is an after-school program, versus arts that are part of some students' curriculum and what they plan to go and do in college. I just want to make sure that there's a balance. We've got a fine arts director and we've got an athletic director, but we don't necessarily have a fine arts admin assistant, but we do have one on the athletic side. So are we being comparable and equitable on each side?
I mean, the only thing I would add to what you were saying is that we have 80% enrollment in the athletic department. So in terms of our kids, we actually have more kids that sign up for the athletics than we have from what we've described in terms of the numbers, the art program. So I think it's also the selection of the kids that we have in Hingham, right? So if it were that, for example, more kids chose to go the art route, then that would be where the funding would go as well. So we're trying to make those decisions also based on where the numbers are flowing as well.
But we might not have had the opportunity to cultivate that interest because we didn't have a fine arts director, which we have now, and we can see that it is engaging and people are going to the shows, and I think it's coming back. That was one of the areas that the kids couldn't do during COVID. They couldn't
Right.
have their shows, and I definitely see there's more interest there. But to Laura's point earlier, when you've got a student who that's what their path is and they're in their last year, is the art teacher that we are cutting, is that going to cut the opportunity for students to have what they had planned on doing their junior or senior year? Or, said a different way, are the two existing art teachers, will they provide the same classes that this one person cut? It's just going to be larger classes. So the opportunities are still there.
I think it's both, but again, it's based upon student interest and having enough students to be able to offer the course. So it's going to be based upon the course selection, grouping the students, and then fitting it into their schedules in order to be able to offer the course. So it is increasing the class size, but then also based upon being able to offer a course based upon the number of students interested in a particular
Okay, so
elective.
those options will still be made, and then it's just, okay. I wonder if there's
And I
any-
would also say with the athletic department, and there's a lot of coordination that needs to happen in order for a program to happen. It's the buses, the payment of officials, it's coordination of scheduling. So there's kids have to register, and there's a lot of paperwork involved. So there's a lot of coordination that happens with a large number of offerings that we have that we should be proud of. But that's why you do have a athletic director and an admin assistant.
I will just share too, the department directors, the 6 of them do share one administrative assistant who places all of the orders and manages some of the administrative functions for the content area departments.
Okay. Any other administrative assistants that are, because last year I think we were talking about we added a special ed somebody to come in and do more of the writing of the special ed plans, the IEPs, but with the online tool or the tool that's changing, I wonder if that frees up some time, or is that, I'm speaking out of my depth here on IEPs and what that new system looks like.
Team leads, they're more in charge, like they're in charge of writing IEPs, but also running the meetings and.
But then remember there was, last year we had the discussion that, that one of the cuts that was gonna possibly be made is somebody who was setting up the meetings and making sure that paperwork didn't get crossed. So there was like an extra person helping coordinate that at a couple of the different schools.
So one of the things that's happened this year to take into consideration is over the course of the year, we've changed the process for the IEPs to try to streamline things so that you don't have to have extra people doing things. The people we have doing things right now are very maxed out at this point. We generally shuffle through the office with multiple meetings, about at least 1,200 IEPs a year. So we don't have 1,200 students on IEP, so I don't want to start any rumors. But we're trying to streamline that, and we're waiting for Aspen to actually move to an electronic or a digital signature, which won't happen for, my guess is, we're in March. I'm going to guess next January. And when that happens, that will streamline things. But for the short term right now, until that happens, I think if you walked around, you'd find everybody is working to capacity and sometimes eating their lunch at their desks.
So what the reduction was last year was to reduce all the special ed admins in the buildings, in the elementary buildings. So it was 4 reductions of the special education admins. I guess the idea at that time was that we would combine the 2 admins that are currently in the building, the 3 admins, to reduce it to 2. Because each elementary now has 3 admins. Well, they probably are more than 3, but there's the main office admin, the secondary admin, and the special ed admin. So
This is at the elementary.
At the elementary. So the reduction that was proposed last year was to reduce all 4 of the special ed admins.
Our concern in looking at that was, again, the number of IEPs and the increase in the numbers. Maybe we can consider that in the future as we become more digital, but at this point, it doesn't feel like that would allow us to be able to attack the scope of work that we have right now.
I'd say 3 to 5 years.
Okay.
It's a
Yeah, I just didn't know if that
So-
IEP change would
No, I
help
think it's
that process.
It's
Yeah.
a logical question, and I think in the spring when you're sitting here and the person sitting in this chair can talk about what's happened if they are able to move into a digital format, then return to the argument. I think right now we would be we'd be foolish in terms of what would not get done legally, and because we have compliance rules that we have to do for Department of Ed, we can't afford to have IEPs sit around. I know that was a problem in the past. We're really getting down to those timelines that I promised you we'd get to. There's some slippage, but most often we're able to get the IEPs out with the new process and get them out on time. And I don't want to see you go backwards.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds like a real false economy.
Right. Okay, I see Tom Donnelly's got his hand up. If you could state your name and address, please.
Sorry about that. Tom Donnelly, 98 Manatee Road, here in town. And you have to excuse me if you may have answered this question previously, but with the Chromebooks at the middle schools, is there a way we can shift that cost onto the parents? Because at some point or another, as a parent, I'm buying a Chromebook for my kids. So you may have answered that question already. I didn't hear, so I just wanted to ask that. And get back to the arts for a second. Part of the reason that there is some challenges with enrollment is the classes are only offered at certain times, so the kids have to choose between which they want to take, the language, or there's just so many choices. So that is one of the reasons why maybe not as large of an enrollment as we'd all like to see. And my last just real question is there a way we can perhaps share an art teacher between either the middle school and the high school, or one of the grammar schools and the high school, where this way they're still getting for the kids who work for up to their fourth year, they go to art school to be able to still get the experience they need to get into the school they're listening to. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Mm-hmm.
The position that's being eliminated is a shared position.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you saw that. It's 80% of the high school group, 20% of the middle school.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I mean, Jen, you had brought up the idea, and then Aisha, and Tom just mentioned it again. I mean, what would a fee look like? What kind of savings could you get?
How much are the Chromebooks usually?
300 or 400.
Yeah.
300 or 400?
The budget's 300 for one class.
And the policy currently is that the students are provided with a Chromebook when they get to 6th grade.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they get to the high school, it's a bring your own device.
Right. They have the option to either abide.
The procedure
Yeah.
is that, okay, so you have to provide your own at the high school, but you are provided one at the 6th grade, and I'm assuming some or many of those kids continue to use that device.
Right.
When
So
they're in high
so what typically happens is that in the 8th grade, they have the option to either abide based on the
Keep them.
well.
No, last year, there was no charge.
Oh well.
Well, 2 years ago, so.
They keep them because I know that I have had cases where we've had a fee applied to them as well,
Yeah, 'cause I
and I've
remember
got
reading
collected
about
and gotten the
last
funds
year
on in the
parents
lost
were
book
asking
account.
What to do with them.
That's for replacement, not for.
Okay. Because we actually calculated a cost for it as well too.
Another aspect of the Chromebooks is that I know the technology director could speak better of this, but I know the Hingham has a lot of control over what's on the Chromebooks because we own them in terms of what kids are allowed to download, in terms of what Wi-Fi they're allowed to connect to, in terms of there's lots of controls that we would lose.
Right. Not only that
in terms of
too.
people being able to download anything they want to in the schools.
Yep.
I'm sure middle school students will make good decisions about that, but
Right. The other thing too is that for MCAS, it's very important for us to be able to have those Chromebooks as well, so that we can set everybody up on the MCAS computer. Because even kids, some kids in middle school that choose to buy their own Chromebooks, but then for MCAS they still have to use a school.
Yeah. For MCAS, if people don't know, when you're proctoring MCAS, there's the only thing you're allowed to use on the Chromebook that you have access to on the Chromebook is the MCAS program. You can't switch off and search the web for something. You can't.
And it starts the night before.
So we just did a quick estimate, it's about 75,000.
Well, using the number of about 250 kids, I'm not sure what the 5th grade numbers are. It's probably a little larger.
I remember the budget was 300.
Right. It was
Chromebooks, I remember that from
300,000.
last
Yeah.
year.
Probably
At
all the
100
repairs and stuff.
Yeah.
At
And I know
$100.
They bought, just from, because I remember numbers, the warrant that we just signed, the warrant was 90. They must have bought a cart for the middle school, and then they just bought them for one of the elementary schools.
So at $100, it would be 25,000. Using the number of 250 students, it'd be $25,000. At 300, it would get us to 75. The $300 is quite a bit of a fee.
And we have to decide on this tonight to be able to riff the teachers in time and
Yes.
move this forward. If we can't talk about, I mean, we can't really even talk about a Chromebook fee or something like that. That's not on the agenda. Layoffs are on the agenda.
We could come back
We can
and
come back
Fees
to
is
it.
on
it. Fees are also on the agenda as well, though.
Fees
The
are
budget.
Fees are on the
Yeah.
agenda, yeah.
That's part of the budget.
It's part of the budget discussion.
Right.
But $100, I mean, how much of a fee are you going to install for Chromebooks? At $100, that gets us to maybe close to 30,000, but it's not a full position.
Bless you.
I mean, I'm not comfortable adding another fee. Like, that would just to not, you know,
I know,
even
that's what I was
like,
gonna
we've socialized some of these other fees for a
I know.
long time and people aren't happy about them. It's for me, and I mean,
No, I agree. It's a public school,
Mm-hmm.
and
I mean, what we can do is riff people, work diligently to try to find the money to work towards a new fee, figure out, like, to have this discussion we're having tonight. I don't see a way to avoiding approving these riffs tonight. And we can unriff people later if we learn how to spin straw into gold, but I mean,
But how many people would vote for it? Do you have any idea? Is it just one that won't? Could you move forward with the votes that you have?
I don't think anybody wants to make the motion.
no, I mean, are you,
can we,
It's not gonna be a trade-off or something else.
Right, you'd have to identify another position.
And we have to make a decision before Friday. on positions.
But we could recall. So if we voted on positions, we could.
yes.
Just one history teacher.
If there's
Yeah.
interest in
I
a
would
fee,
agree.
we could work on a proposal for a future meeting and see what the cost would be, what would be the cost, and generate some information, collect some information on local towns that have fees for Chromebooks, and come up with a proposal.
yeah, I mean, I guess I just keep going back to Tim's point. I mean, it stinks, but, you know, we're likely gonna be having further, so like, we can make a trade-off today about one history teacher versus, you know, two instead of one for some other position that we don't like, or this fee. Or almost definitely, I mean, I don't even think it's almost definitely, I think we are definitely having another discussion that is, you know, frankly, maybe, who knows, but as significant as this, if not more. So I
We're
guess,
still in negotiations yet, so.
And as the closer to the year, we might have more money to close some of the gap too as well. Because we,
yeah, that, I mean,
I
that is
mean,
definitely,
rarely do we have money at the end of the year.
the timing on this is tough, right? With March 15th feels, it's a little bit early, right? I mean, I think that's why we've talked about one of our TAs actually to change the date. Because it is right in the middle of the budget cycle, but you're not close enough to the fiscal year end to sort of know where the rest of the year is gonna fall out. Do you want the motion?
No,
No, I know.
I'll
nobody wants to.
accept it.
Do you want it for,
she said we had to do it person by person.
It's
not
position, it's not
position by
position,
position.
it's
And
position.
Sorry.
it's, I can do them, I can list them all.
Mhm.
Or you can just do it in one,
Mhm.
or you just do it all together.
Yeah, okay, all right.
You just have to name them.
So to approve per Article 22 of the contractual agreement between the Hingham School Committee and Hingham Education Association Unit A, and authorize the superintendent to implement the following reductions in force. At Hingham High School, one social studies history teacher, so two social studies teachers in total, one world language teacher, a .8 art teacher, a .6 music teacher. At Hingham Middle School, reduction of a library media specialist from 1 to .5, one world language teacher, a .2 art teacher, and at the elementary level, one elementary teacher.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, Matt?
Aye.
Ally? Tim? Jen?
No.
Michelle?
Aye, but I would like to exclude one of the social studies, so one social studies teacher.
You want to change the motion?
No. So,
Well,
Actually,
I
I
think
will.
you or no.
I will, I mean, we can accept an amended motion?
I will accept an amended motion. but then budgetary reasons.
All right, then I'm
Okay. Carrie?
We're voting on the first one, but that's
The first one, sorry, the first one, Carrie.
The first one.
Sorry.
the first one, aye.
And I'm an aye as well.
Okay.
And I think that doesn't preclude us from finding money in unriffing people.
Right.
I think the
Absolutely.
riffing people is for, out of respect to the HA and to observe our obligations to inform people in a timely manner. I voted yes, I'm not seeing this as done.
No, I would agree with
point.
that 100%.
Yep, okay.
Do you want us to come back with a proposal around Chromebook fees?
That and maybe transportation?
A transportation
Yeah,
fee?
that's one that we had discussed. We just talked about it during the sustainable budget. Most districts do it.
Okay.
That'd be great.
Well, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, so 7.2, to discuss a proposal for naming of a theater at the new elementary school and act as appropriate.
So this is a proposal for the new elementary the new elementary school building. This is a discussion that began way back a couple of years ago. To name the new stage after a former Foster student, Anna Quinlivan. She would have been a graduating senior of Hingham High School in 2021. Her life was cut short when she passed suddenly in July 2020 while running a race at summer camp. She was very involved with drama and community theater over the course of her time here in Hingham. She had a dream of working on Broadway one day. Her parents, Mark and Julie Quinlivan, were consulted by staff. They supported the making of this proposal to the Foster school community. Foster PTO was advised. Foster School Site Council was also in approval, as well as the staff. The Foster PTO would help fund and finance the purchase of a plaque if you approve the naming of the stage in the cafetorium.
Just for the record, we're looking at our naming policy after this, but it does, everything in there follows along with our current policies that we've been to school council and PTO for.
Great.
Thank you, that was gonna be my question. And just the building committee wanted me to clarify that, because the agenda had said that it was for the theater, but it's not really a theater, it's the cafetorium stage.
It's
that
the stage
can
and the
serve- that-
cafetorium, yes.
Any comments, questions, feedback?
It could be a really beautiful
Yeah.
tribute to her in the school.
Really nice, yeah.
Thank you to the chair for putting this on the agenda after the last discussion.
Thank you to,
Nice to
Matt.
really
Yes.
want to vote for something.
Yes.
yeah, thank you to Matt, who at Foster and the PTO as well, who brought this forward, and as well as the staff who supported the family also as well.
All right.
I will make a motion to approve the naming of the cafetorium stage at the new elementary school to replace Foster School in honor of Anna Quinlivan.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Matt?
Aye.
Ally?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Carrie?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. All right, thank you. 7.3, a bunch of policy stuff, as Ally stated, so I'm going to let her take this off.
I know you're so excited. We have a bunch of our J section policies to look at. We had approved in the fall our educational equity policy, and MASC had an update just to a little more detail around some of the protected classes. So if you want to look first at JBB, this is all a first read, so we can look at this one, and then there's several others that just had this same language picked up to follow our approved policy, and now with this new change, and then some of the legal references as well. So JBB is the first one, and it just includes, I put it redlined for you guys, but in regards to race, it details out race includes traits historically associated with race, including but not limited to hair texture, hair type, hair length, and protective hairstyles. So that is the update on that first one, which we had looked at in the fall already and approved. So it's a minor update, and then The ones that fall out after that just have that same language picked up, so equal educational opportunities. School choice also has that, as well as some of the legal references updated. And then JICK, harassment to students, those all are just that same language. The JIC, student discipline, just has the legal references updated. And just, we were doing the J policy, so we just kept on going. So that's the first bunch, again, just for a first read. The two that are the biggest change, we have JFA, our non-resident school admission policy. And this one we looked at, we wanted to put in some more detail around what it actually means to be a temporary student, and a little more around when Dr. Adams or the superintendent would need to get that request for permission. So we have as of April 1st, and this pertains really to families who either are moving into Hingham and want their student to attend while they're waiting and they don't have an address here, or in reverse, when someone moves out of district but wants to complete the school year. And so just putting a little more detail around that and having a little more of a process around it. And then the final one is our naming policy, which we just discussed. But pertaining to the town policy, we reviewed it just in light of the town naming policy bylaw that was passed last year. And we added a little bit of language because there was some concern when we discussed it in the larger committee about having a morals clause, just in case there was some change to someone who had sponsored or put their name on something, and we felt it no longer related to the values of Hingham or the school district. And then also just to put in the line about there will be procedures developed by the superintendent, and that will be done by Margaret on her end. But we wanted that in there so there would be procedures to be followed around the naming. And that's it. Unless you want more, I can give you more policies.
Thank you, Ally.
Awesome.
Yeah, on all that work on on the policy committee with Ally, so it's been a lot. She's done a lot of work.
A lot of policy.
Redlining it too, I love it.
Trying to make it easy because it's very confusing. Keep them straight.
I appreciate it. All right, so we're not voting on this tonight. We've got this is the first read, and we will put it in the agenda for the next meeting to possibly vote then.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, does anybody have any questions for Ally or policy?
Just a comment that they're all online in the packet format tonight if people want to look at them.
Yeah.
Yes.
The public wants to look at it.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so now we're at 7.4 to approve submission for town annual report and act as appropriate. So this should be in your packet. So this is for us. This is an annual report that goes in into the annual report, and this is our portion of this. Do you know what date is they're looking for this? Is it August 16th?
I think it's the 22nd off the top of my head.
Okay.
So it's coming soon.
Okay. So, does anybody have any comments or feedback now? All right, if you can take a look and send to me and Margaret your comments by Thursday, I'd appreciate it. Okay, 7.5, to review the 2024-2025 school calendar and act as appropriate. This one we have been putting on hold because there's some possible negotiation proposals. So I think we have a clear idea of what is being proposed in T8 at this point. So I thought Margaret could take us through that.
So the major change is the first day of school. You'll notice is a bright yellow there. It's Wednesday instead of the Tuesday. That September 3rd is a primary, so that means the schools would be closed that day. And school would start on that Wednesday, and then kindergarten would start on the following Thursday. The other change you'll see is the November 5th would be the federal elections, and schools are closed on that date. Those are the major changes. You'll see the early releases, and you'll see that our last day of school is on the 18th. with the holiday in between, and then that last day of school for teachers would be, the makeup days start the following day, sorry. So the last day of school there is the 17th, and staff is there on the 18th. Did I read that correctly? I think so.
Yep.
Yeah. No, the last day of school is the 18th.
Oh,
And
right.
the M would be the last day
Oh,
for
got it.
staff.
Okay.
Yeah. And the makeup days then start afterwards. Anything else about the early releases that changed?
No, we did move up in consultation with teachers, moved the early release conference date
Yes.
for elementary up sooner. We were finding that there just weren't enough spots for parents by just having one conference date in the fall. And so we moved one of the elementary conference dates up sooner to respond to both parent desire for additional early conferences and teachers as well. So hopefully that improvement will help.
That's the latest I've seen graduation before. The way the
Oh,
calendar
yeah, it
falls.
is.
It's gonna be a hot one.
So I just, it sounds like that did, but the HEA was consulted on the calendar as well, and they were good
Yes.
with it, okay. I know it's part of the process.
We have Juneteenth as well too.
And Juneteenth is already out. Want a motion?
I have a comment, and it's not going to be popular, but because Juneteenth is the holiday, and then the teacher's last day would then be the day after Juneteenth, what are the ideas around going on the 23rd of December and having the 24th and 25th off so that we would then not lose that day in June?
I think one of the challenges also is that the attendance before holidays drops significantly, and so we could do that, but attendance would drop, and so we want to maximize the time we have with students. Putting that day, the 23rd, December 23rd, I can imagine attendance being as low as 70%. We currently see that right before Thanksgiving breaks, and we see it before,
Yeah.
April and February breaks.
And
Attendance is
Juneteenth
dropping
is
down.
paid regardless to the teachers, to Unit A?
No.
Is that
No,
They're
teachers are salaried.
teacher's salary? The proposal, there's nothing on the table for anything else.
Yes, the paras, if it is that they
School.
worked, if school is still in session afterwards, so if you had a snow day in 2025, and we had to go into to Friday,
It'd be a paid holiday.
there'd be a paid holiday
If
as
school-
well.
If school is in
Yeah,
session.
if school's in
Okay.
session, yeah.
So if school's in session, but they wouldn't be there on the teacher's last day.
No.
Okay, so basically, we're not going to have any snow days next year. We're going to agree on that. Okay, great.
Well, I mean, it's the addition of those 2 election days does,
Yeah.
makes
Yes.
the year longer, so we're going longer into June, and additional
Right.
snow days would make us go into that
Okay.
3rd or 4th week of
I
June.
just want to make sure everybody knows that there's a cost to going
Yep.
past that Juneteenth date.
Right, and it's still, if it is that we had like multiple, Snowmageddon or something like that, we'd have to renegotiate it going into July.
No, we couldn't,
Yeah.
we have 2 days leeway here, so we could go up all the way up to June 30th if needed.
Because we don't have many days in terms of,
Cost starting in the
yeah.
budget for next year.
No.
Which one? Snow again?
It's a too
The
big a
paid
cultural
hol- the
shift
paid
to make
holiday.
next year, but if people like getting out early, lots of districts start the week before Labor Day.
So
Yeah,
you're saying
we
there's a
do.
cost.
There's a cost to Juneteenth. Us going past Juneteenth us going past Juneteenth, there's a cost to it.
And is that already worked into the budget?
No.
No.
Well, yes, actually, yes.
It's currently in
is,
the budget.
yeah.
Okay.
So could we save money if we went to school on December 23rd?
Well, yeah, definitely.
Well, you use heating the building too, though. You heat it differently on a vacation than you would during a school day.
Well, it's summertime.
December
Oh, I'm
23rd.
sorry. I thought you were saying December 23rd. No.
No.
She was
December
referring to
23rd.
December 23rd.
Oh,
Yeah, you would heat the building differently in an occupied building versus an unoccupied building, so there would be some fuel costs.
so she's saying to, don't have 23rd as a school day? Is that what she's
Yes,
asking for?
having December 23rd being a school day.
Okay. Well, in terms of the teachers, the admin assistants' current guidelines, if the day before Christmas, which is what, the 24th,
25th.
25th, sorry, okay, forget that. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that attendance drops, and if we want students to maximize the time they're in school, that would not be a day that I would recommend being in school.
Do you think
I-
if we, at the end of the year, have one snow day and we end up on that 20th, you have, especially at the high school, like you have some students who don't have that last day anyways, like are we gonna have that same attendance drop? Parents just, you know, you're gonna have a half day on that Friday and it's a holiday the day before. I mean, I guess it's a risk. We don't know what the snow days will look like.
Yep, we don't.
I think we should keep the 23rd. I think it's really unsavory to talk about the calendar in terms of whether or not we have to pay paras for a vacation day. I don't want to have that discussion.
But to save another teacher?
I know. Of the context of the last one, I'm just thinking the specific.
To save a teacher.
I know.
That much. A day of the paras.
What's that?
I know.
How much is a
Sorry.
day of the paras?
And we'll be at the Paris for all 125 of them. Yeah. So it'll be 125. I mean, assuming that
Yeah,
on
it
average.
depends on the rate of the.
Yeah,
you're
but we
paying.
can figure it out in terms of that, right?
I think you should think and keep at heart what is best for the students.
Right.
And the families. So that's what you should keep at heart and
Right.
not use the payment of a particular group of people in determining.
Understand, but if it means keeping one additional teacher, that's directly impacting the students as well.
I'm not sure but I'm guessing the
It's not gonna
amount
be
would
like
not
a-
do that.
it's not gonna be that
Yeah.
much.
And if
Yeah.
we roll the dice, we wouldn't have a snow day.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's in the budget already, is what they're saying.
Yeah, it's in the
Yeah.
budget
But I would
right now.
agree that
Right.
I think
the teachers have, this is the calendar that they have requested. The
Yeah.
administration is saying this is the good calendar, I think for staff time as well over the holidays. Nobody wants to teach to an empty classroom, so.
Okay.
And that's
All
what
right.
our teachers want, to go into late June. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yes, so I will make a motion to approve the 2024-2025 school calendar as drafted.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, Matt?
Aye.
Ally? Tim?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Carrie?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Okay. 7.6 or 7.7, Aisha? There's nothing this week, right?
There's nothing.
Nothing,
no.
okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to move over to item 8. You can give quick updates on subcommittee and project reports. Matt?
I don't really have anything about.
Okay.
The only thing I have is just if you haven't bought your tickets for the Hingham Arts Alliance party, it's on March 23rd, and it'll be a great night.
Yeah, fun.
I've got nothing.
Okay, Jen?
Still looking up the date. Finance is meeting on March 25th,
Okay.
right before our next meeting, and there are warrants in the packet.
Okay, great. Michelle?
I don't have anything.
Carrie?
So the middle school council was scheduled for Monday the 18th. Our negotiations has been convened on Wednesday, so another leadership session, and unit A on Thursday. And I just wanted to mention that both third staff, which is supposed to be the athletic partnership, has teacher pollution coming up on April 3rd. It'll be 5:30 to 7 o'clock in high school. A lot of local vendors get with it. So I think it's what they're all going for.
Great, thank you. And I attended a wellness meeting and an equity meeting, and that's all I have. All right, item 9, any other items under 48 hours? Okay, so we have item 10, we're going to adjourn to executive session. We will not be returning to open session.
I move to adjourn to executive session, not to return to open session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, for the purposes of approving minutes from executive session held on February 26, 2024. As an open meeting may have a detrimental effect to the bargaining position of the public body, and the chair so declares.
I so declare.
To hear a grievance from Unit B, HEA, as an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body, and the chair so declares.
I so declare.
And to provide an update on negotiations with HEA Units A, B, and D as an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body, and the chair so declares.
I so declare. We have a second.
Second.
All those in favor, Matt? Aye. Ally? Tim?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Carrie? And I'm an aye as well. Thank you. We're adjourned.